Chapter 1898. After a 20-day visit to the library, Han Dong had basically explored the place. Although the appearance of the library would not change, it was like a living ancient castle covered with dark red wrinkled skin. However, the internal space had been modularized. For example, a cube would be evenly divided into 9 small squares. The position of each small square would change, but the overall shape would not change. It was the same for the library. The internal space was modularized. The internal structure of the library could be changed through the core control room. Of course, it was mainly to change the passage, floor, and location of each library. Some important areas, such as the review area where the House of Representatives and the Senate were located, would not change. The controllability is extremely high, and the overall performance of the library is not that of a plant planet. It can be suspended in the deep space of the prison world and rotate at a certain frequency. Only prisoners and prison guards with excellent performance and outstanding contributions to the prison can get the opportunity to read in the library. Moreover, they have all passed the review of the House of Representatives. If there is a gifted person like Eugene, he can stay in the library and work forever. This arrangement may be good. These days, Han Dong would often laugh strangely whenever he thought of the library being his. There were even several times when he woke up laughing in his sleep. Several times, it almost caused the laughter to spread and bring doomsday into the library. Today, Han Dong finished chatting with the last batch of high-level members of the Senate. They were also very happy to accept the new curator who was about to take office, even if Han Dong was only a mythical body. But this group of professional testing teams was very clear about Han Dong's potential. Just the head that was constantly emitting gray fog was very impressive. Just as Han Dong stepped out of the Senate, a yellow silk cloth gently fell on his shoulder. A withered palm slowly stretched out from the gap between the silk cloth and his shoulder. Your adaptability is really good. You have almost familiarized yourself with the library in such a short time. Today is the deadline for your borrowing time. According to the regulations, you have to pay the corresponding fee. This fee will be deducted from your salary as the curator. Thank you, Senior. Don't talk nonsense. Although I have endless time, I still want to return to the original world as soon as possible and meet with my old friends. Let's hurry up and find the remaining undead pages. Okay, but Han Dong had a problem. Although the library could move between dimensions, it was equipped with a driving force and self-protection system. However, since it was such a large building that mainly focused on internal management, in order to ensure stability, the overall movement speed was not high. If you don't mind, Yellow-Robed King, please take my planet of plants. This planet was originally made to travel quickly between dimensions, so its speed and stability were one level higher. If he were to use the library as a carrier, it would be troublesome if he were to encounter a singularity storm or a large-scale enemy attack in the interdimensional space, causing damage to the library. I suggest that we leave the library in the depths and return to our original world with the library after we've collected all the remaining pages. From the moment I gave you the seal, you were the curator. As for the arrangement of the library, it's up to you to decide. You don't need my permission. Also, I've been to the planet of plants you mentioned. Whose masterpiece is this planet? I've never seen any biotechnology that's fused into it. It's the research results of a fugitive, and now it's in my hands. Seeing that the Yellow-Robed King was interested, Han Dong briefly explained the life story of Professor Morgan. Of course, he did not mention that he had cooperated with him in private and had taken the planet for himself through acting. A lunatic who likes to experiment on living things. He offended many old kings and even defeated M.O., who had the throne, alone. He was the one who cut off the Ghoul King arm in Eugenist's body, right? What a good talent. It's a pity. Otherwise, he could have been my chief researcher. Okay, call your friends. Let's go. The planet bordering the back of the library quickly floated up. The moment he returned to the surface dimension, Han Dong's sole reaction immediately recovered, and he accurately located the location of the other 3 remaining pages. During the voyage, the yellow-robed king said that he only needed to unconsciously unfold his soul domain to ensure that he would not be disturbed during the flight. Han Dong and the others did not need to take shifts to guard. They could continue to improve themselves during the voyage. In fact, the yellow-robed king, who had not merged before, could also do it. He was just lazy and did not want to be distracted. Han Dong naturally did not stand on ceremony and continued to practice the true Book of Bones. Bop and Eugenius also began their own practice. The yellow-robed king came alone to the room where he created during the separation period. It was also here that he completed the fusion before. Anyway, this kind of unconscious domain unfolding basically had no effect on him. In his spare time, he took out the novel booklet that only completed the character design, outline, and beginning during the separation period, although the evil and most of the defects in his body had disappeared. But his love for creation was still reserved. During the writing process, he could often peek at the smiling face under the yellow robe. Anyway, I have nothing to do. Writing something like this can pass the time. Moreover, this novel is based on the world I live in. It's quite interesting to write it. The protagonist will follow the original setting. After all, this is the only emissary under my command. The sense of immersion may be stronger. Half a year passed. The Black Tower Control Headquarters, BBC, significantly reduced their search for the broken dimension. It was not that they had given up on the transfer of strongholds, but that the currently collected information was enough. The next step was to officially start the transfer project. During the search, they had accidentally obtained a remnant page. It greatly improved their efficiency in seizing the final authority. Today, they finally penetrated to the 4th level and successfully unlocked the miniature world, where one of the committee members was. With the closure of New York City interspersed with various technologies, the world used to bind this person. A middle-aged man with deep eye sockets, a crew cut, and a suit walked out with a briefcase. The square-headed Deep House was here to receive him. Mr. Goodman, I'm very happy to see you in advance. The lounge has been prepared for you. Please come with me. I was preparing to go to work on Wall Street today. The world collapsed halfway. You guys are really fast. I slept well last night. I don't need to rest. Show me the remnant page that I accidentally obtained. Yes. I'm here to receive you to lead you to the lounge and officially contact the remnant page stored there. Only you can control such a strange thing. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Under the guidance of Deep House, the two walked in a brand-new independent corridor. The steam hydraulic iron door at the end of the corridor slowly opened. He thought that the lounge was behind him. Who knew it was still a bottomless passage? Passage, iron door, back and forth cycle. This achieved an absolute isolation effect. The so-called lounge was built in a very deep area. The potential danger of the remnant page has caused a total of 133 people, including the original controller, to be irreversible brain effects. We must seal it in a very deep area to prevent such effects from spreading. I hope Mr. Goodman can understand. It's okay. As long as we can get there before noon. Nap is a very important thing for me. Chapter 1899. In half a year's time, Han Dong had done enough practical work. Under the command of the yellow-robed main body, the journey was unimpeded. In other words, the number of rampagers wandering between the broken dimensions was significantly reduced. In the process of searching for the remaining remnant pages, they did not encounter any rampagers. The collection mission was completed. Buzz. In a certain broken crack in the S-01 world, the Sereno Grand Library was dragged by a plant planet and returned to its original world. At the same time, There was a soul aura that was beyond understanding spreading in the world. It was like a drop of thick, pure white turbid liquid dripping into a quiet lake. In a short time, this white color was brought to every corner of the lake. Whether it was active in the major cities, adventuring in the forbidden zones, or living in the depths of the universe, all of them had a similar feeling at this moment. Their souls would be drawn. Their vision seemed to see their clothes turn yellow. Their thoughts gave birth to a name together, but they did not dare to say it out loud. They could only call it the Yellow-Robed King. There were also bursts of hymns among the stars, as if announcing the return of the Yellow-Robed King. These guys, it seems that they are quite welcoming of me. Standing on the surface of the plant planet, the Yellow-Robed King silently watched the long-lost whirlwind soared. He missed his hometown very much. At the same time, a void door was torn open not far from the surface of the planet. Teacher Yu, who was dressed as a bartender, walked out and gave a very rare hug. In ancient times, they would not use this kind of hug in the human form. Instead, they would entangle all kinds of tentacles or insert them together to give a true, interactive hug. The tentacles could convey the emotions in their hearts most intuitively. Not bad, right? Well, evil has basically been eliminated, but it's still quite playful. It's good to have some interests and hobbies. My disciple, how do you feel? Better than the students of the void I've seen before. Maybe in another 100 years, he'll be able to squeeze you out. Such a high evaluation? It seems that Bop's performance in the broken dimensions is quite good. I even saw some strange forks in his destiny line. It seems that there are unexpected opportunities. Also, what about the two little guys? That Shugas has already been possessed by you. How dare he refuse my invitation? If I hadn't just completed the fusion and was in a good mood, I'm afraid this Shugas would have been gone. Eugene is the fifth prime substance that has been acknowledged by many of our former kings. He has his own thoughts, and you also know that his attributes are completely different from yours. If you lack people here, I can recommend a group of races with soul talent to you. This group of Shugas is no longer suitable to be slaves. Let them develop freely. In the future, we might be able to produce a king who is on equal footing with us and increase our battle prowess. There's also Nicholas. I won't comment on this. You should know better than me. However, there was a problem with the collection of the Book of Necromancy. The most important book, the real brain book, was nowhere to be found. It could be concluded that this part of the remnant pages had been taken away by the so-called rampagers. This is our important property, and these guys have seriously infringed on our rights. You should already have a plan, right? When are we going to wipe them out? It's normal that one or two of the remnant pages were not taken away. However, it just so happens that the brain was taken away, which may make things more troublesome. If you don't alert the enemy too much during this trip, they will still choose to use the shattered dimension as a temporary stronghold. When the time comes, I will lead the advancement of this game. As for you, Yellow-Robed King, you don't have to spend time on this matter. Just rebuild your soul kingdom. When the time comes, you will naturally have a chance to make a move, and there may even be times when you are forced to defend. The Yellow-Robed King was a little puzzled by this statement. Forced to defend? Could it be that these guys can still invade us here? With Nicholas's help, I successfully enslaved a rampager. They divided the 3 levels of kings into Prince Jack, Queen Queen, and King King. Although there are more than 20 kings, most of the information is encrypted. But in my opinion, they aren't a big threat, even if you don't count the boss. We can also fully suppress them. This is just superficial information. The reason why this group of rampagers can make the Black Tower feel so distressed and even eventually ask for our help and compromise naturally means that they have their own abilities. They are all chaotic existences in different worlds. Their birth is wrong and they are completely outside the rules. It just so happens that they were gathered by the Black Tower, forming the most dangerous group. In the face of Teacher Yu's words, Yellow-Robed King was still disdainful. When it comes to chaotic, there is nothing more chaotic than the big guy sealed here, right? Teacher Yu didn't say anything else. In short, this group of guys will be very interesting. We have been silent for countless centuries. Although we had a lot of fun during the last world cataclysm, it wasn't enough. I hope that we can have a long-awaited gaming experience this time. I believe that you will be very satisfied when the time comes. That's it. I still have to bring Bop back to the void and guide his future development. Alright, it gives me a headache just thinking about the mess waiting for me to clean up. Not only did Teacher Yu take Bop away, but he also took Eugenius with him. Of course, he wouldn't bring Eugenius back to the void with him. After all, Eugenius didn't have much understanding of space, and the danger of going to the void was self-evident. Eugenius would be sent to an area very suitable for cultivation, a protoplasmic world ruled by an ultimate ancestral god. Origin Flesh Nation, Aiders. The seventh protoplasmic substance, the competitive hop, also happened to be undergoing cultivation on the level of strength. When the two protoplasmic substances with special bodies collided, there might be some spark. Before leaving, Teacher Yu still turned back to look at Yellow-Robed King not far away. His head that could reflect all things in the universe seemed to reveal a gratified smile. In ancient times, the Yellow-Robed King who possessed powerful soul abilities but did not do anything practical, spilled evil, and even established soul markets in many places was a thing of the past. The brand new Yellow-Robed King would bring a completely different soul system to World S01. In the library, thump, thump, intense heartbeats could be heard throughout the corridors. Han Dong, who was trying to cultivate the true heart book, had unusually good results. His left chest had completely caved in, and his beating heart was inside. Visible to the naked eye, about 80% of the heart was already covered with ancient rock layers. When it was completely transformed into a stone heart, the true demonic heart would be born from the stone. Progress is fast. Let's call it a day. Why is Bop and Eugenius Oregon? Have they already returned to World S01? These two fellas left without even saying goodbye. Seriously. They even said that they would leave after having a meal with them. Han Dong tidied up a little and quickly walked to the exit of the library. The moment he pushed open the door and stepped out of the library, the celestial phenomenon formed by countless souls entwined, arranged, and swimming stunned Han Dong. Not far away, he vaguely caught a glimpse of the lake that his consciousness had once been to, Lake Halley. At this moment, whispers transmitted between souls kept echoing in his ears. Translated into English, it was, "This is Carcosa." Chapter 1900. I was too immersed in the training of the necropolis that I didn't notice the changes in the outside world. In the blink of an eye, I'm already here. The world of the Yellow-Robed King, Carcosa. My consciousness had spent some time between the lake. Speaking of which, are the souls wandering around here because Carcosa is the final destination of the hybrid demon souls, or because the Yellow-Robed King took them here? Just as Han Dong was mumbling to himself, a voice came from behind him. Both. A reply sounded in his ears. Before he knew it, a yellow robe had landed beside Han Dong. The Yellow-Robed King who had returned to his homeland had a new form. A form that weakened his defense, lowered his mysticism, and greatly increased his soul affinity. He was also known as the Soul Prince of Carcosa. The yellow robe that covered his entire body had turned into a light bandage that wrapped around his head, torso, and arms. The extra bandages floated behind his back. The light bandage revealed his skinny body. Thin white tentacles could be seen wriggling between the bandages. Only the lower half of the yellow robe remained. The long skirt trailed behind him, giving him a dignified and noble feeling. When the Yellow-Robed King returned to the world under his control, a horn-shaped crown was already fastened on the bandaged head. His thin and withered fingers were pointing at the souls that filled the sky. They may form clouds, they may radiate light, they may form black mist and rain. The souls of the Carcasa of the past were at least 50 times more than now. Due to the large amount of land deeds that I used as compensation and the division plan, no one managed this place for a long time. Now it has fallen to this state. Of course, it's better than I expected. At least the basic system still exists. Come with me. Even though there's nothing for you to do here and I don't need your help, as my messenger, you should take a look around this place. Perhaps it will be of great help to your future cultivation of the Book of Necromancy. You can also take the things that I no longer need. Okay. When he heard there was something for him to pick up, his interest was piqued. On the way to Hairy Lake, Han Dong asked curiously, "Do the souls of the hybrid demons gather here after they die? Or was it drawn here by you?" If all of the hybrid demon souls would come over on their own accord, I wouldn't have ended up like this. I was forced to sign all sorts of restrictive agreements and large amounts of land deeds as compensation. Even my throne was almost overthrown. However, there was indeed a problem with my management style back then. Anyone who had seen the yellow seal, or passed by me occasionally, or dreamed of Carcosa, etc., as long as there was a direct or indirect connection to the yellow seal, their soul would be attracted to Carcosa after death. Naturally, there were also some individuals who belonged to other former kings, which led to conflicts. Furthermore, my temper wasn't small at all back then. If anyone dared to come knocking on my door and ask for a soul, I would usually ask for several times, or even dozens of times the price. Also, personally, I still have some thought. Although I don't like to nurture emissaries or establish a church, I personally have a great need for souls and brains. You've seen the evil part, so you should understand. A high-quality soul could make Carcosa stronger, and a high-quality brain could satisfy me. That's how things got out of hand. There were even a few old bastards who joined forces to suppress me. But now I can understand why. After all, eating other people's descendants and best students is a little despicable. When you guys barged into the library, I would have sucked your brains dry and sewed your souls together into a carpet and placed it in my office. Comfortable, it would have been comfortable. But I think once the Void and the Grey know what's going on, they will make a move on me. Hearing this, Han Dong recalled the scene of his head being licked, and felt a lingering fear. After all these years, I've thought it through. I need to find a relatively friendly management style for Carcosa and try my best to get the souls from the outside to come to me willingly. Are you going to establish a church? Han Dong hit the nail on the head. After much thought, this is the only way. Although it's a little annoying, it's something I have to do. After establishing the Yellow Seal Church, I'll give the believers some gifts or guidance on their souls. When they die, they will willingly leave their souls behind in Carcosa. As long as the church is big enough, the number of souls gathered in Carcosa will be enough. Do you need my help? Establishing a church is a slow process. I have plenty of time, so I can do it slowly. All you need to do is take care of the library and store the Book of the Dead inside. Yellow Robe seemed to know Han Dong did not have much time, so he brought him here for a stroll. In front of them was the famous Halley Lake. It was said that all the souls that were led to Carcosa were baptized by Halley Lake to wash away their obsessions and willingly stay in Carcosa. In fact, it was a kind of memory cleansing and thought injection. Once the souls were bathed in Halley Lake, they would become Carcosa's slaves. From afar, on the other side of the lake, there was an ancient city that looked both real and fake. At times, it looked like a yellow wall. Sometimes it looked like a towering, dilapidated castle. At times, it looked like a scattered village. In short, due to the king's defeat and departure, the city was already in ruins. After that, he and the king sat on a broken wooden boat and slowly paddled across Halley Lake. Occasionally, a tentacle would poke out from the fog as if it was spying on them. The lake was not that big. However, no matter how hard Han Dong paddled, he could not reach the other side. The ancient city on the other side was even more out of reach. Unknowingly, they had spent an hour on the lake. Han Dong could not help but ask, "Sir, are we going to the other side? I don't think we'll reach the other side." "That's right. The other side does not exist. Halley Lake itself is boundless. What you see on the other side is just a reflection of the lake. If the other side does not exist, then what is the ancient city on the other side? What you see might not be the truth. With your eyes, you should be able to see it, right? Since the other side is a reflection, the palace that we're going to is also a reflection. The scenes of the ancient cities were nothing more than reflections in the lake. The real palace is located under Halley Lake." At this moment, the camera zoomed in. The wooden boat that Han Dong and the king were on was already deep in the endless lake. A black shadow was slowly floating up from the lake. Compared to it, the wooden boat was as small as an ant. The entire lake shook as it floated up. A large number of bubbles floated to the surface of the lake, forming more dense white fog. "It's coming, Nicholas. Get ready." As soon as the king reminded the king, a large number of white tentacles rose from the lake and dragged the wooden boat into the depths. The sound of the wooden boat being crushed could be heard. At the same time, an identical wooden boat reformed from the white fog in the harbor. Chapter 1901. Whoosh! The tide washed the shallows, and the shell conch that lived here seemed to be awakened. Something was slowly drilling out of the nut. Hiss hiss, several slender roots stretched out and took root in the beach, pulling out the main body that lived in the shell. Splat! A slippery and elastic brain popped out. The shell conch was directly wrapped inside the brain. When it needed to rest, it would be taken out as a temporary residence. With the help of the tentacles at the front and the crab legs on the side, it moved forward on the beach. Logically speaking, this brain crab would instinctively crawl into the lake to replenish the water. However, it seemed to have smelled something different and moved towards the shoal. Rustle, rustle, rustle! It wasn't just this one. Tens of thousands of brain crabs were awakened by the rising tide and gathered in this area. There was a living body lying here, and the brain emitted an extremely tempting smell. The nearby brain crabs all grew sharp mouthparts, trying to poke into the target's skull and suck the delicacy. Ding ding ding! A series of metal collisions sounded in the shallows. When the mouthparts poked at the skull, they were all broken. Looking at this living body from a certain angle, its entire body was overflowing with a gray metallic luster, indestructible. With the continuous collisions, the unconscious young man slowly woke up. He didn't know how long he had slept, but hunger overflowed his entire body. The moment he woke up, he instinctively grabbed a moving brain crab and stuffed it into his mouth. He ate nearly 20 of them in a row, including the shell conch inside, before he could barely fill his stomach. Not only did the nutrition flow throughout his body, but it also allowed an essence to flow into his brain, fully activating his groggy brain. His consciousness gradually woke up. Where am I? I remember that I was rowing a boat with Yellow Robe in Lake Harry when I was suddenly swept into it. Is this the world under the lake? These crab-like brains should be related to Yellow Robe's second identity, distant feaster. I didn't expect it to taste so good when eaten raw. I can roughly understand why he likes brains. If that's the case, the doctor's brain should also taste amazing. When Han Dong got up, these brain crabs also realized the danger. They either retracted into the shell conch or returned to the sea. Both sides of the shallows were endless. Behind Han Dong, there was an uphill road that led to the upper end of the sea cliff. Let's go up and take a look. However, just as Han Dong reached the top of the stairs, he stepped directly into a conference room with a familiar layout. Many familiar and unfamiliar faces were looking at Han Dong at the door of the conference room. Han Dong didn't feel any discomfort at all when faced with such a huge change in scenery. Moreover, Han Dong's clothes had turned into a white lab coat with a lot of plaque. "Professor Han Dong, please take a seat." The course schedule for this semester has already been released. The course you're in charge of is the signature of our Life Sciences Academy, so I must explain it to you clearly. Yes, Dean Francesco. This was the University of Florence where Han Dong worked before his death. The faculty and staff present were all his colleagues when he was alive. Han Dong didn't know when he had assumed the role of a professor. He even felt that he had forgotten the time of the meeting because he was doing an experiment. In front of the empty seat reserved for Han Dong, there was a sealed document bag. For some reason, the document bag was exuding a dark aura. Professor Han Dong, this is the most important course in our department. You have to prepare well and make the best courseware according to the textbook. There may be famous people from all over the world who will come to attend. No problem. When Han Dong opened the document bag in front of him and took out the textbook, he was stunned in front of his seat. A terrifying book that was constantly emitting a dark aura, and the aura itself turned into a skull, was placed in front of him. The ancient text printed between the cover of the book was enough to make ordinary people fall instantly, beyond the scope of conventional biology. Professor Han Dong, is there a problem? At the same time, a strange question came from the dean's mouth. The voice became extremely strange, as if it was produced by a broken radio and then squeezed out through a withered throat. When Han Dong looked up and looked around, a large number of tentacles drilled out of the professor's mouths. Their skin was quickly falling off, revealing dark red muscles that were squirming. Buzz! Suddenly, a tingling sensation came from the depths of his brain. Han Dong had to hold his head. When the pain disappeared, everything in front of him returned to normal. The book in front of him became the normal, human biology. Professor Han Dong, is there a problem? No problem, I'll take it seriously. It was as if nothing had happened. Han Dong got up and returned to his office, and began to seriously create the courseware. This human biology book had a total of 8 chapters, covering every important part of the human body. Is this book incomplete? It doesn't include the contents of the brain. Forget it. That's it for now. The next day, Han Dong brought the courseware to the lecture hall. It was already crowded with students. Everyone had a greedy look in their eyes, and some students were even drooling. If Han Dong looked at them, they would wipe their saliva away and pretend to listen to the lecture normally. The lectern was unusually large, and there was a corpse on it for the lecture. When he stepped onto the lectern, Han Dong habitually used chalk to write his name on the blackboard to introduce himself. Warren. Nicholas. When he habitually wrote his name, he suddenly realized that something was wrong, so he immediately erased it and changed it to Dong. Han. This semester, I'll be explaining the Human Biology course. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand in class and ask me at any time after class. Today, I'll start with the first chapter, For some reason, when Han Dong flipped through the contents of the first chapter, he was very familiar with it and could even recite the contents backwards. At the end of the wonderful lecture, the audience burst into strong applause. Han Dong even occasionally glanced at the forehead of some students, and there was a strange living eye. In the blink of an eye, everything was normal again. His teaching life went on as usual, but the workload was not light at all. Except for the chapter on eyes, which was very smooth, the difficulty of the other chapters was unusually high. As a result, Han Dong had to slow down the pace of the class, and even discussed the obscure contents of the book with some students and teachers after class. Sometimes, he even needed to use various human experiments to understand and verify the contents of the certificate. Slowly, he even spent all his sleeping time on the interpretation of the textbook, just to bring the best teaching content for the students. The camera pulled away from Han Dong and jumped out of the university campus wrapped in thick white fog. They came to a dilapidated ancient castle. There was a huge theater set up here. In the past, when Carcosa was still functioning normally, those who pursued souls, or those who wanted to ask the yellow-robed king, would come here to enjoy a stage play called The King in Yellow. This was the basic requirement set by the yellow-robed king. Enjoying the stage play was the most basic respect for him. Only those who could understand the meaning of the stage play were qualified to talk to him directly. At present, Han Dong, who was in a deep sleep of the soul, was tied up in a strange posture by yellow strips of cloth and hung in the middle of the stage. The yellow-robed king stood in front of him and used his slender fingers to cut open the skull and the outer surface of the soul. He reached out and stroked the brain between the skull and the skull-shaped inner soul. It seemed to be stroking, but in fact it was inserting tentacles into the depths of the soul to create a different kind of soul dream for Han Dong. In this case, it should be helpful for the understanding of the Book of the Dead. Don't let me down, my only chosen messenger. Chapter 1902. When Han Dong was immersed in the soul dream, and carried out a special form of demonic book cultivation, several large-scale events that were closely related to him happened in the Black Tower one after another, and he even needed to get in touch with Han Dong directly. However, Han Dong, who was in the soul world, couldn't get in touch. One of the major events was directly related to Count Scarlet Count, who went to the sub-super world Saint level as the spokesperson of the Nether Blood. In the ancient tomb in the deepest part of the forbidden area, the origin of the sacred blood was found. There were even many streams in this tomb, and the sacred blood was constantly flowing out from inside. In the coffin sealed in the tomb, there was a huge corpse that had a strong connection with Count. However, the corpse's eyes had long been open, and it even sat up from the coffin as if it had been waiting for Count for a long time. The so-called sacred blood was a huge trap. This king's corpse, which was still flowing with sacred blood after death, was buried in the deepest part of the forbidden area, or it could be said that it was sealed here. The reason was that the corpse was once the dictator of the saint-level world, the bloody titan Serene. Back then, the saint level that was ruled by him was full of blood and slaughter. All the craftsmen not only had to go through hardships to find the truth, but they also had to fight and bleed for the necessary resources. In the end, Serene's rule was overthrown by the current Titan Council. He was also completely killed, and even his throne was completely overthrown, destroyed, and sealed in the deepest part of the Ghost Pass of the Divine Craftsman. However, although Serene was dead, his corpse had been flowing with sacred blood for millions of years, mixing into the bodies of the creatures in this forbidden area. A small number of destiny travelers who went here might be stained with sacred blood during the battle. It wasn't just Count or the Hall family that was cursed by the sacred blood. In the worlds related to the Black Tower, there were also many destiny travelers with the so-called sacred blood curse in their bodies. They had to constantly hunt evil creatures to obtain the necessary satisfaction. Otherwise, their bodies would suffer pain as if thousands of ants were gnawing on them. Even the sacred blood would take the initiative to strip the blood from their bodies and turn them into a dried corpse. In fact, this kind of forceful exorcism attribute was only urging the host to grow. As the carrier of the sacred blood grew stronger, it would gradually produce a sense of attraction in their minds, making them want to search for the origin of the sacred blood. However, so far, Count was the only one who could go deep into the Ghost Pass of the Divine Craftsman and find the deepest tomb. His motive was obvious. Even before Count stepped into the tomb, he had already guessed it. The purpose of this Serene Titan leaking the holy blood was to select the best body to possess and be reborn. And Count, who came from a super world and was favored by the Nether God, was the best candidate. The battle was about to begin. After going through the Nether blood baptism and relying on the Count from the demonic book, the 7 chapters of the Mystic Monarch, he didn't feel any fear when facing the corpse of this dead king. By replacing his own skull with the legendary equipment Underworld Blood Skull, he had transformed into a spokesperson in the true sense of the word, erupting with a power that surpassed that of a mythical body. After a certain amount of time, Count was actually able to fight the Titan corpse head-on, and he wasn't even at a disadvantage. The battle that erupted in the depths of the ancient tomb directly caused a phenomenon. The sky above the Forbidden Zone, the ghost pass of the divine craftsman, was completely dyed red, and there was even a rain of blood dripping down. When the Titans from the Saint Stage world rushed over. After all, they were still mythical bodies, and they were in someone else's territory. Count gradually fell into a disadvantageous position in the later stages of the battle. When he was about to be killed, the blood that flowed out of his chest quickly floated up and condensed in the sky. A world passage formed by blood was connected to the superworld Dawn of Terror. This was already considered a large-scale or world intervention. It directly attracted the attention of the Black Tower. Generally speaking, the changes between worlds had to be allowed to happen naturally. If one wanted to carry out world intervention, they had to meet various conditions. For such a superworld to intervene in a sub-superworld, it had to be approved by the Black Tower. Such direct interference, and even a collision at the rule level, was a major violation. Moreover, the people involved included the most terrifying lord of the underworld in Dawn of Terror. The World Inspection Bureau immediately listed this matter as a red incident and reported it to the higher-up. They thought that they would arrange for a member of the Supreme Will to personally lead a team to control the world. Unexpectedly, the order from the higher-ups was not to interfere and let the situation develop. The one who issued the order was Ms. Bay, who was in charge of balancing the world. Finally, with the personal intervention of the underworld god, the matter quickly calmed down. Count and the Titan's corpse were wrapped in a ball of blood and returned to Dawn of Terror. As for the Titans on the Saint level side, they didn't care at all. Some of the Titans were even very happy after learning that this plot that had been laid out for 10,000 years had been destroyed. If Serene really took over and was reborn, what awaited them would be a huge disaster. Although taking the corpse away would cause the Saint-level world to lose a path of holy blood, it could be considered as eliminating a huge hidden danger. A few months passed. Waves of blood aura seeped out of the world portal. Count returned to the Black Tower alone. He wrapped his body in a dark red robe with black edges, trying his best to hide his identity and not attract the attention of outsiders. Due to the issue of world intervention, although he didn't need to be interrogated or imprisoned, he still needed to write a written reflection to the Black Tower. Even though the robe covered most of his aura, the scarlet blood aura that leaked out was enough to make others retreat. Count came to the nearby Black Tower office and found an empty space to write a reflection. A familiar aura came from the side, accompanied by the heavy dragging sound of iron chains clang, clang. Bach Count. The voice seemed to come from the depths of hell, making Count suddenly stunned, and even instinctively overflowed with blood, wanting to defend. Immediately after, a saw was inserted in his head. His whole body was pierced with steel needles. The mythical demon, whose back and arms were dragging the iron chain through his flesh, had already sat down opposite him. One of the chains even exuded an aura directly related to the world. Togu Gonzalez, are you out? Count could barely be regarded as Han Dong's second consciousness, so he naturally knew the core anomaly. Then he looked behind him. The black-haired lady in red was slowly walking over with a deep-sea relative. Yes, we just finished the special trial, but I didn't expect it to be so many years. How is Lord Nicholas? We entrusted the Black Tower to contact him, but he hasn't responded, saying that he can't be contacted due to unknown obstacles. Now it seems that you can't contact him either. Could something have happened to Lord Nicholas? Togu showed an extremely uneasy expression. At this time, a slender hand full of warm blood lightly landed on his shoulder. Don't worry, Nicholas can't be in trouble. I was just busy and didn't have time to contact him. Since the Black Tower can't be contacted, he's probably in the depths of World S01. although the Count pretended to be calm in the face of all this, but the place where his hand touched kept sending a strong needle pain, so painful that he almost wanted to bark, and his back was even covered in cold sweat. But he had to maintain his image as Count and Han Dong's important spokesperson. If you can't wait, let's go back to World S01 to find him. With this Count's connections, it should be easy to find him. Yes, it is indeed necessary to meet up with Lord Nicholas as soon as possible. Just as they were about to ask the staff to open the portal to World S01, boom. An extremely strong tremor came from above, directly causing the indestructible interior of the Black Tower to crack open, and even the building to collapse. At the same time, it was accompanied by a strong, ear-piercing sound of space being torn apart. Many of the Destiny travelers in the Black Tower's plaza had their eardrums shattered by the violent sound of space being torn apart. Count immediately opened a bright red barrier, enveloping everyone inside. What's going on? This is the interior of the Black Tower, the safest center of the world. How could something like this happen? The tremor lessened slightly. When Count and the others rushed out of the Black Tower's office, they were immediately shocked by the scene in front of them. Looking up from the bottom of the Black Tower, the roof, separating it from the middle layer, had been completely torn apart. The important pillar that was supposed to be located in the middle, which was the main building corresponding to the control headquarters, had been uprooted and disappeared. Only a huge crack was left behind. Extremely unstable subspaces were scattered around, and subspace storms of different magnitudes could erupt at any time. So fast. It's faster than the shortest time estimated by more than a year. We have to hurry back to Nicholas's side. Chapter 1903. The Black Tower had envisioned many ways for the Rampagers to escape. But what was happening in front of them was the most serious and worst kind. After all, the previous owner of the M alphabet had personally designed the headquarters to serve as the middle layer's core pillar. Whether it was the crystal pipes rooted in the ground, these pipes were connected to different pillars in the nearby streets, like strong and powerful ropes that fixed the building, or the multiple restrictive force fields that existed around the headquarters, and the control that came from the highest will. All kinds of designs superimposed on each other, making the control headquarters stable and unshakable. According to the design concept, even if the Black Tower was attacked by S01's hybrid demon and most of the area was destroyed, the basic stability of the control headquarters could still be maintained. However, the Rampagers, through complete infiltration of the control headquarters, BBC, technical mastery, and unpredictable means of losing control, used the headquarters as their base and moved everything in one go. The main reason was related to the Rubik's Cube that Han Dong had seen. As the BBC was completely stripped, the middle layer was paralyzed, and the department buildings near the center were also threatened by the subspace storm. Director Charles had taken action immediately, using the power of control to suppress these subspace rifts as much as possible, but the danger was still there. It wasn't just the Black Tower. Even the entire world of the Black Tower had a clear tremor. At the back of the world, in a position completely opposite the Black Tower, in a suspended building made of some kind of rare metal, a middle-aged man wearing metal glasses woke up in a special state. He adjusted his glasses slightly to align his pupils. At the same time, he reached out to comb his slightly curly blonde hair, and tied a small braid at the back for the convenience of his next move. When he tried to get up, his body had already appeared at the outermost edge of the suspended temple. It was as if he could directly feel the specific situation inside the Black Tower. It's actually a year faster than the shortest time expected, and the entire BBC was moved away. Is this really a hidden danger left behind at that time? The Rampagers have now obtained the Rubik's Cube by integrating the world together through technology. It's equivalent to them holding a space authority, that even the Black Tower can't reach. This mess is really not easy to clean up. That's all I can do. Although I haven't fully recovered, it's almost there. 1. That person disappeared again. In just a few seconds, he crossed this huge world zero, ignoring the outer barrier of the Black Tower, and directly appeared in the area of the incident. This process did not produce any spatial fluctuations. It was as if he was moving at an unnatural speed. Many people with the highest consciousness had already arrived in the middle layer, and they were currently trying to find ways to maintain stability and eliminate risk. At a glance, the middle-aged man saw his colleague, who had just arrived. He was wearing a white suit with the word M printed on it. "Mentor, you're here. Come over quickly." Listening to the familiar voice, Men Tua, who had just arrived, was also stunned. He even broke out in cold sweat. "Mr. N, have you recovered?" As a holder of the same alphabet, the only person that Mentor was in awe of was this person. Charles's condition won't last long. The other's methods are only slowing down and stalling for time so that Bay can think of a way to balance it out. This can't go on. If a subspace storm erupted in any of the rifts, it would trigger a chain reaction in the other rift. Every department in the middle layer would suffer, and the Black Tower would fall into a state of paralysis. Spend a little price to stabilize the situation. You build the model and I'll seal it. This, all right. Mentor was also very uncomfortable. He did not know how much of his origin liquid would be consumed by this forced modeling. However, he could not refuse the other party's request. Moreover, if this dragged on, Director Charles would really be in danger. Suddenly, a large amount of milky white liquid gushed out from the rift. As a holder of the M alphabet, Mentor had received careful guidance from his predecessor when he was young. His brain stored BBC's design blueprint. With this blueprint as the foundation, he would build a one model. Of course, the main purpose was to build a similarly stable headquarters building, mainly in the external structure, piping system, and basic framework. As for the internal complex layered structure, he would not rebuild it. As long as he could quickly build a similarly stable headquarters building, he could plug the rift. Just as the white modeling fluid was about to take shape, Mr. N stretched his right arm forward. Some kind of metal material invisible to the naked eye immediately acted on the surface of the modeling fluid. Some kind of thin metal layer that could not be analyzed by technology was already attached to the surface. At the same time, it formed various barrier stripes that symbolized stability. Even the subspace rift near the building was wrapped by metal balls. Mr. N patted Mentor's back gently. "Mentor, you've become a lot stronger. I just wanted you to use the modeling fluid to build a cube to fill the gap. As a result, you directly made me a replacement for the headquarters building. That's ridiculous. I recently heard that you want to hand over the M alphabet. This matter needs to be carefully considered. I think you can still work for 100 years. If you have any requests, just tell me. You don't have to apply through Bay." "Thank you, Mr. N. I just met a very good young man and trained him. I have no intention of handing over the alphabet. Teacher once left the blueprint of the General Control Department in my brain. Since I want to fill the gap, I'll use it directly. It's a bit tiring, but this way stability can be maintained for a long time. Everyone can have time to think about countermeasures. I need to rest. I'll leave the rest to you, Mr. N. Okay, go ahead." Ms. Bay, who symbolized balance, stood not far away. Her voice was also heard. "Mr. N, I'm sorry to disturb you in advance. I didn't expect things to happen a year earlier than expected. I have to arrange for the World Administration to quickly inform the major worlds about what happened here. At the same time, I need to personally go to S01 and tell the group of hybrid demons about the escape. I'll leave the situation in the Black Tower to you to handle. Go ahead." Seeing that this person had come out of seclusion, Ms. Bay did not hesitate at all and directly gave all authority to him. To be precise, it should be returning authority. This Mr. N was the holder of the letter A, and also the recognized master of the Black Tower. It stood for Adam. On the other side, on the surface, he said that he wanted to rest. In fact, he didn't want to rest at all. He just didn't like to stay by Mr. N's side. Mr. N's invisible sense of control made him uncomfortable. And since the Rampagers had escaped with the General Control Department building, this meant that they did not need to build a city or other collective places. The internal integration would be completed in a short time, and soon they would launch a full-scale invasion of the multiverse. Mentor had to warn the worlds under his jurisdiction. Soon, the escape routes of the various worlds will be opened according to the size and order of the world. The Black Tower world will soon be crowded with refugees from various worlds. I don't want to burden this place. Just lead some worlds directly to S01. When the time comes, just let Nicholas make the connection. Chapter 1904. The Black Tower has officially entered a Level 1 alert state. 1. Close all world passages. 2. Suspend the Destiny Realm system. Ongoing Destiny events will not be affected. 3. The Black Tower's internal trading system is in a semi-open state. Some materials cannot be exchanged for the time being. 4. All Destiny travelers who are active in the Black Tower are prohibited from returning to their original world. At the same time, they will be forcibly recruited by the Black Tower to assist the relevant departments in maintenance and control work. 5. At the same time, a world conference will be held. Only Sub-Superworld and Superworld node holders can participate. The main content of the conference is to inform them of the crisis situation and provide them with some information about the Rampagers. The most important point is to ask them to temporarily put down their conflicts and establish communication channels between the worlds. Once a world is invaded by a Rampager, other worlds can quickly provide assistance. Of course, this assistance is not mandatory. If it is determined that the Rampager has completely infiltrated a world, the world passage connected to it can even be automatically closed. 6. According to the size and order of the world, the escape channel to the Black Tower will be established. The main life of each world will be accepted in an orderly manner. Of course, the number of lives accepted will be proportional to the contribution made by the world. No matter how large the Black Tower world is, it can't accommodate all the lives of thousands of worlds. All kinds of security measures are being carried out in an orderly manner. This also caused Count and the others' application to go to S01 to be rejected. What should we do? After Nicole heard the situation from the staff, her pink tentacles uncontrollably overflowed from her body. A long fingernail, emitting resentment, gently stroked Nicole's head. It's okay. This dog will definitely have a way. Who's a dog? Count glared at Chun-Li fiercely. Of course, it was just a glance and he didn't take it seriously. The Count said helplessly, That's right. I didn't expect that we would be stuck at this point. No matter what, we have to find a way to go back. We can only go to the Fight Club and find an opportunity to use Han Dong's connections. Maybe we can open a back door. At this critical moment, the lunatics in the club probably won't force us to fight. However, just as Count was about to step out of the Black Tower office, he was immediately stopped by a group of law enforcers wearing whirlpool masks. The 4 of you, according to the Treaty of Fate you have signed. When the Black Tower enters Level 2 alert or above, it has the right to call upon the Destiny travelers who are active within the Black Tower. According to the treaty, if an individual refuses to be conscripted, they will be stripped of all qualifications related to the Black Tower. They will not be entitled to any preferential treatment in the future, nor will they be able to participate in any journeys of fate. Wait, we didn't sign a contract. We came here through Nicholas, so he should be the one to sign the contract. By the way, the name he registered with you should be Han Dong. When the Count said this name, he was stunned. The magistrate's mask immediately rotated. The name Han Dong had spread like wildfire recently. The leading law enforcer immediately verified the identities of Count and the others. According to the records, just as Count said, the four of them were tied to Han Dong. The other party's tone immediately softened. You have a master-servant relationship with Mr. Han Dong. He arranged for you to participate in the Destiny experience here, but he didn't expect to encounter the current crisis. In this case, the Black Tower indeed has no right to forcibly conscript you. Please wait a moment, I will report your situation and see what the higher-ups will do. Unexpectedly, the situation was reported for less than 2 minutes. A drop of white mucus fell to the ground. It quickly constructed a handsome uncle in a white suit and leather shoes, without even having time to put on a mask. Mr. M. The magistrates immediately knelt on one knee. Mr. M's eyes only stayed on Count and the others. It's a bit difficult to directly learn S01 now. Come with me first. Do something for me first. When the time comes, you will naturally have the opportunity to go to S01 with me. Don't worry, you will meet Han Dong sooner or later. Moreover, you may not be able to keep up with Han Dong's current level. I will give you some special opportunities, it's up to you to grasp them. Sorry to trouble you, Mr. M. Hearing this, Count's desire to return to Han Dong's side was instantly reduced by 80%. Having just tasted the sweetness of the saint level, his sense of opportunity was very accurate. As he needed to come back to write a reflection, Count hadn't completely absorbed the Titan's corpse. If Mr. M was to provide an opportunity, and it was to leave Han Dong aside and provide an opportunity to himself alone, Count was 100 times willing. Or rather, Count wanted to return with a completely different attitude. A return that could reflect his endless potential, achievements, and a return that was in line with his Scarlet Count, Underworld Blood spokesperson, and a series of titles. He was extremely eager to see a shocked expression on Han Dong's face. Just as Count was about to ask Mr. M where he wanted them to go, the modeling fluid had already wrapped around their bodies. They only felt that they were undergoing an unobstructed ultra-fast shuttle. When the fluid dissipated, everyone was already standing on the top of a mountain. This mountain existed in the fourth dimension, standing in the middle of hundreds of worlds. Standing at the top of the mountain, one could see the general situation of many worlds. These worlds are all modeled and created by me. They are pure original worlds and are extremely valuable. They must not be affected by the Rampager. I need you to help me pass on a message here. Worlds like Corpse Country that have a relationship with Han Dong will establish a connection with S01. As for other unrelated worlds, I will establish a secret passage connecting to the Black Tower through the back door. I set up and send some important people over first. This is my handwritten order. You just need to show it to them. Run errands? Count originally thought that there would be some opportunity, but he didn't expect that the treatment was similar to when he was with Han Dong. If you don't want to, you can wait here. Run. It's an honor to run errands for Mr. M. Count had already knelt on one knee and received a special handwritten order. You need to know that these worlds were created by me personally. There must be some differences in them. Whether you can find the opportunity while running errands depends on you. Okay. Count already showed an impatient look and instinctively got on all fours. He almost barked twice. After getting Mr. M's permission, he immediately set off for the first world. Chun-Li and Nicole also hurriedly followed. While going down the mountain, Count was a little dissatisfied with the slow speed of the people behind him. Especially Nicole, who used her tentacles to move forward. Considering that they were also important servants of Han Dong and had experience in fighting together, he reluctantly let them ride once, just once. In addition, When Togu was about to follow, he was suddenly put on his shoulder by a hand. The most special group in Hell monks. At the same time, they are also individuals chosen by D and have developed for a period of time in Draytown. This time, they achieved the ultimate trial in Clive Barker's Jericho and reached the mythical stage. Nicholas has a good eye for people. If you are given a few more years, you can participate in the Demon King assessment in Hell. Moreover, the chains on your body seem to exude an aura that I am somewhat familiar with. As he spoke, Mr. M's palm slowly moved downwards. When he touched the chain wrapped around Togu's right arm, he immediately felt the power of the world contained inside. Togu also immediately explained, "This is the world chain brought out by the corpse country. Because it was useless at that time, I just happened to be able to control it." Nicholas handed the chain to me. "At present, the other chains in my body have also undergone subtle changes due to the introduction of the world chain. This time, I was able to quickly break through the mythical body, which is also closely related to the chain. The world chain is not something that can be controlled casually. You don't have to run errands with them. You can do me another favor. Can you see the situation below clearly?" Mr. M stood on the cliff and pointed down between the clouds and mist. "I'm not very clear. I have almost no cultivation of my eyes. I can't compare with Lord Nicholas at all. In this case, you should be able to see clearly, right?" A thin layer of modeling fluid covered Togu's eyeballs, and the visual enhancement was more than 10 times. At the mountainside there was a huge chain that connected all the worlds that could be seen from here. The world chain transcends the conventional dimensions and exists as the foundation of the rules. It was created by me personally. This is the first time I have seen a special individual like you who can control the chains. Now, you have to help drag the chains and let these worlds gather towards the New World Mountain. I will give you as many chains as you can drag the worlds." "Thank you, Lord." Togu's expression didn't change much, and he didn't realize what kind of opportunity this was. He just treated it as a job. Chapter 1905. The Black Tower invited the node holders of all the superworlds and sub-superworlds to hold a joint meeting. However, S01 was excluded from the list of candidates. First, it was because the node holders of S01 could not be invited. Even if they were invited, the meeting could not be held at all. Who would dare to sit in the same conference room as the Lord of Chaos? Second, it was because this information needed to be delivered personally, and according to the cooperation agreement signed with S01, they also needed to provide more detailed information about the Rampagers than other worlds, since the Tower Master had returned and taken over the Black Tower again. Ms. Bay, who had some free time, brought a world balance team under her to S01 in person. The team was full of mythics, and a few of them were at the level of lesser kings. Each of them had the balance ability that Ms. Bay had personally taught them. This ability would be displayed in all aspects, and even words would have an effect. It was very suitable for negotiation and regulation to ensure that violent incidents did not occur. Of course, even if violent incidents had occurred, it could still be forcefully balanced. The mask worn on the face was also very interesting. There were 2 vortexes at the top and bottom, which also symbolized a state of balance. This trip to S01, in addition to informing the Mantis demons of the various land deeds, Ms. Bay also wanted to meet the existence of the void alone. In other words, her main purpose was to go to the void. Otherwise, she could have arranged for her subordinates to pass on information to the Mantis demons. Holy City, Nointerna, Mr. Black and White, who was sitting in the stargazing room, seemed to have seen through the anomaly. He immediately contacted the Great Plague Master, who was staying with the witch in the swamp, and they rode to the top of the Holy City together. The Great Plague Master's physique was 1 size bigger than before. Among the team leaders, only Captain Keeman was bigger than him. There was also a certain change in his appearance. The Knights of Plague were the first team to be responsible for investigating outside the city when the Holy City was first built. They were the main force to fight against and eliminate the plague of pollution. But with the success of the Great Expedition, humans were no longer affected by pollution. The Knights of Plague began to study the characteristics of the mantis demons in depth, and even fused the pollution of the mantis demons with their own plague science to create a unique infectious substance. The Great Plague Master had now stepped into the category of false king. He wore a fur coat that would occasionally squirm. No one knew which mythical mantis demon he skinned to support it. There was also a plague collar around his neck that was made of different types of hybrid demon skulls. Of course, these were all made by killing the hybrid demons in a reasonable way. It would not affect the relationship between humans and hybrid demons. Behind him hung a gigantic troll axe, Corpse Destroyer. Black-white, what's so urgent? Today, I observed a heavenly phenomenon that has never been seen before. Some kind of heavenly disaster that surpasses understanding may descend. It is necessary to inform everyone of this matter. As such, we have already formed an alliance with the hybrid demons. Captain Hugo is in charge of mediating between us. What other natural disasters are there? Perhaps it's a disaster outside of this world. When the crow carriage reached the top of the Holy City, a steam-powered carriage arrived from another direction. It was Mr. Newton, the one who was invited as a visiting professor by the University of Mishu and the Holy City. They seemed to have felt the same uneasiness and abnormality and rushed back to the sacred city. The two wise men looked at each other and confirmed what they had sensed. They stood at the top together and looked down at the Holy City. Their eyes also noticed that outside the East Gate there were 3 powerful auras rushing back to the city. The heat of hell and the death energy of the underworld were entangled together. At the same time, there was a thick scarlet blood energy. With the end of the London game, the hybrid demon world was fully opened to the Holy City. Under Malone's suggestion, the former Knight Squad was formed again. However, they were no longer the former trainee knights. Instead, they were the strongest squad formed by the captain. The captain of the Scarlet Knights, Shea, had also reached the level of a pseudo-king. However, her expression was not good. It seemed that there were very few places where she could use her full strength. Most of the time, she was providing healing and support. They went to the various forbidden areas of the universe and began an even more dangerous adventure. At this moment, they also felt something and quickly returned to the Holy City. It seems that everyone felt something. That's why they all rushed back at this time. I don't know how the alliance with the Great Demon is going. If he didn't rush back, I will have to deal with it. As the captains gathered at the top of the Holy City one after another, a whirlpool-like portal opened in the sky. Wearing a whirlpool mask, a member of the World's Balance team came out. He received Miss Bay's orders and was responsible for conveying information to the human main city. This was also his first time in World S01. In this world that was ruled by the hybrid demons, humans were nothing more than slaves and intruders. It was impossible for them to have a good development. However, the prosperity of the Holy City and the king-level existences gathered here were an eye-opener for him. Especially when he looked at Captain Malone, he smelled the aura of a middle-level demon. The weapon at his waist was also a top-level existence. At the same time, he also discovered that Captain Alex actually had the real throne of another superworld, Olympus. The humans here can actually develop like this. It's unbelievable. Moreover, some of them are mixed with hybrid demons. This city also has an area for hybrid demons to live in. Can humans and hybrid demons really live in harmony? Just as he was shocked, Mr. Newton's voice came. Messenger from the Black Tower, do you have something to tell us? The Rampagers have completely broken free from the restraints of the Black Tower. They will definitely invade various worlds in the short term. Although the probability of World S01 being invaded in the early stages is very small, please be prepared for the invasion war. This is some special information, please treat it seriously. So soon? It's a year faster than the shortest time, Nicholas said. Any famous region in the world, such as Mishra, Nkei, the northern continent, and so on. There were visits from the world's balance team. However, what puzzled the team members was that they didn't seem to see any surprise or panic in the hybrid demon's eyes. Instead, there was only a kind of calmness and even a little excitement. In the team, members with king-level standards would also go to the worlds of the superiors, such as the Deep Sea, Shalnos, and even get temporary permission to go to the Dreamlands. One of them was a captain named Mari, who was also a world investigator. Her skin and hair were white as if she was dyed with albinism. In fact, it was because she was an expert in the soul element and had been conducting related soul research in the Black Tower. She had even used herself as a vessel and the subject of experiments several times that caused the change in her skin. She was ordered to go to Soul Kingdom Carcosa to deliver a message to the king in the yellow robe. Just as she stepped into this area, she was shocked by the soul structure here. The things that were displayed before her were all soul creations and ancient technology that she had never imagined before. They actually used the soul to construct a world, using rules to bind and structure. Only the hybrid demons would dare to do something like this. Every action that happened here was enough to be sentenced to death by the Black Tower. What a madman! This place doesn't seem to have its former glory. Has it suffered some kind of blow? Following the guidance of the soul, when she was ferried across the hairy lake, her soul affinity caused her to be completely immersed in it. Unknowingly, she had arrived at the edge of a shallow beach. Following the human footprints on the beach, she suddenly arrived at a human university. This transition didn't make her feel uncomfortable at all. However, this university had seriously mutated. The students and teachers here had grown extra growth tissue. There were also huge sarcomas hanging on the surface of the building. There were even a large number of removed limbs, eyeballs, and internal organs in the utility room. The students needed to go to the bathroom every once in a while to use a utility knife to remove the excess parts of their bodies. "Hello, what can I do for you? You don't seem to be from this university." Just as Captain Mari was puzzled by the situation in front of her, a voice called out to her, or rather, it called out to her soul. It was as if she felt that an extremely terrifying existence was standing behind her. A terrifying hybrid demon that exceeded her understanding seemed to be the true source of all this mutation. When she quickly turned around, the monster in her mind didn't exist. It was just a gentle young teacher who was holding a human biology book in his hand. Mr. Han Dong. Chapter 1906. Mr. Han Dong? Do you know me? I still have to rush to the next class. If you have anything to say, you can wait until after class. Han Dong felt that this strange woman with albinism was a bit strange and even a bit out of place with the environment. However, he was in a hurry to go to class and had already wasted a lot of time preparing for the class. If he hesitated for a while, he might really be late. He walked to the classroom as fast as he could. Han Dong turned a blind eye to what was going on in the classroom. When he brushed past a student with a bigger physique, he accidentally bumped into the student's swollen sack. The scene of juice splashing out was simply too beautiful. The student also hurriedly apologized to Han Dong. At the same time, he lay on the ground and licked all the liquid that splashed out from the swollen sack. From Han Dong's perspective, this scene was just an accident that knocked over the milk tea in the student's hand. The student was also very polite. He took out the paper towel that he carried with him and wiped the spilled milk tea clean. Mary stared at Han Dong's back. She was about to call out to him and tell him the purpose of this trip. When she wanted to say something, she felt that her mind was a bit chaotic, and even covered with layers of fog. She had forgotten a lot of things. Even her identity and the Black Tower were not very clear. She probably knew that she came here to find an individual called King in Yellow. My memory has become blurry. If I can find the King in Yellow, perhaps I can fully understand. Let's follow this Mr. Han Dong first. Since I still remember his name, it means that he must be very important. Perhaps I can find clues about the King in Yellow from him. After all, Mary was a world investigator. Relying on her sense of smell and instinct, she immediately followed. At this time, the class bell had already rung. Han Dong had already stepped into the classroom and walked to the podium. Mary could only go to the last row of the classroom and listen quietly. She would come forward to ask for details after class. Today we will continue the explanation of organs. Please turn to page 153 of the book. Mary curiously looked around the blood-stained classroom and observed the students who had different degrees of mutation. Turn the book? These students don't seem to have brought any books. However, when Han Dong gave the request to open the book, all the students did the same terrible action. They placed their fingers along the midline of their bodies and dug into their chests. The crisp sound of bones and flesh being torn apart spread throughout the classroom. The students had already completely opened up their chests. At the same time, they continued to cut open their stomachs, thus completely exposing their internal organs for the next lesson. To Han Dong, this sound was the normal sound of a book being flipped. During the rest of the class, following Han Dong's lecture, the students also reached out and touched the corresponding internal organs. Or they could inject some unknown and strange liquid into it. Or he could directly peel off a certain internal organ and cultivate it on the table. The newly diseased and mutated organs would then be stuffed back into the body. As an observer, Mari naturally wouldn't do such a strange thing. But as the class went on, Mari also felt that something was wrong with her body. The words that came out of Han Dong's mouth sounded normal, but they actually drilled into the brain like a virus. Even if her ears were blocked, she could still hear the whispers clearly. Mari even felt that her internal organs were squirming uncontrollably. She retched for a while. Mari couldn't stand it anymore. When there were 5 minutes left before the class ended, she left the classroom early and ran to the nearest female bathroom. She found the last empty cubicle and began to vomit madly into the toilet. She vomited out 3 incomplete lungs, 2 kidneys, and half a heart. These organs weren't Mari's own, but they had grown during the class. Vomiting all of them out was a good thing. The proliferated organs were all black and smelly. They were still restless in the toilet, squirming and trying to climb out. Mari immediately pressed the flush button. Unexpectedly, it didn't trigger the flush. Instead, several tentacles grew from the depths of the toilet and dragged the internal organs in. She could even hear a strange chewing sound. When she pushed open the cubicle door and wanted to leave the bathroom, it happened to be the end of the class. A large number of female students quickly rushed into the bathroom. Most of them were in the same situation as her. They directly vomited out the extra organs in the bathroom or stood in front of the sink to cut and clean the extra organs in their body. Because the bathroom was limited in size, those girls who couldn't find a pit or sink had to group up and stick their bodies together. They cleaned each other's extra organs. Some even directly bit them with their mouths, or cut and separated them with their nails. For some reason, the scene in front of Mari even made her a little excited. At this time, there was a good-looking black girl who took the initiative to find her and directly pressed her body against hers. If it weren't for the fact that she had something to do, Mari would probably stay in the bathroom for a while. Anyway, she didn't remember who she was. She was just following her instincts. No, I have to find the king in the yellow robe. The mission rooted in her heart drove her to leave the bathroom. Just as she was looking around for Han Dong, a hand gently rested on her shoulder. You seem to have been looking for me, stranger. With such a hand on her shoulder and a whisper in her ear, Mari's whole body trembled, and she felt her internal organs tumbling again. The person who put his hand on her shoulder was Han Dong, who had just left the lecture hall. In Han Dong's eyes, everything in the school was normal. On the contrary, the arrival of a stranger like her brought a sense of dissonance to the campus, a sense of unreality. In the class just now, Han Dong also unconsciously glanced at her, a woman with severe albinism, so the efficiency of teaching decreased a lot. Therefore, he decided to come and ask after class. "Why are you looking for me?" Mari could only say the only thing she remembered. "Excuse me, do you know who the king in the yellow robe is?" If Han Dong really returned to the state of teaching when he was alive, such a strange name would not appear in the university, and as a university teacher, Han Dong would not come into contact with this strange term. However, when this albino woman said this term, Han Dong was not unfamiliar at all. He even felt a strong electric current pass through his brain. Not to mention the stinging pain, it even stirred up some hazy memory fragments. It was as if he saw a wisp of yellow silk floating in front of his eyes, but when he wanted to observe it carefully, it disappeared. "It's so familiar, but I can't remember it at all. Did you come to the University of Florence to find me just to ask about this special term?" Mari quickly replied, "Yes, I don't know why I came here. I only remember the king in the yellow robe, and my heart urged me to find this mysterious existence. In addition, I don't know where this place is, and I don't know any students here, but when I saw you, your name suddenly appeared. Well, the term king in the yellow robe seems to exist in my head. Let's go to the library of Buddha University. Maybe we can find the answer there." Han Dong did not treat her as a lunatic because he also longed to find the answer to the king in the yellow robe deep in his heart. So they went to the library together. Chapter 1907. On the way to the library. For some reason, the fog in the campus became thicker, so much so that they could only see the stone path under their feet. The world investigator, Mari, also felt more and more uncomfortable. She kept feeling that there were countless malicious eyes spying on her in the fog around her. She could even occasionally see tongue-like tentacles extending and quickly retracting. If she was not careful, she might be dragged into the fog by the tentacles that suddenly appeared. A sense of fear that directly affected her soul made her unconsciously get closer to Han Dong and try to keep the distance between them within 1 meter. She did not remember anything. She even forgot the truth and her abilities. She only knew this Mr. Han Dong in front of her, and wanted to find clues related to the king in the yellow robe. Even though she seemed to be slightly older, this young teacher always gave off a very reliable feeling. As long as she was close to him, Marui would feel more at ease. They walked along the stone path for an unknown amount of time. During this time, they did not meet any students. When the fog in front of them completely dissipated, Marui was suddenly stunned. All the fear that had accumulated in her body was expressed. Her body was even trembling slightly. A giant monster that could not be described with conventional words appeared in the fog. Its mud-like skin was constantly flowing. As if it had smelled the two of them, large, uneven mouths grew on the surface of its body. Each mouth was filled with dense eyeballs the size of beans. All the mouths gathered into a giant abyssal mouth and suddenly swallowed the two of them. This scene frightened Marui so much that she instinctively looked for support. She held Han Dong's arm tightly. However, the feeling of being swallowed did not come. The rotten smell floating in the air also quickly dissipated. The only thing that came was Han Dong's gentle voice. "This is the library of Buddha University. Let's go in and take a look." When Marui raised her head, the indescribable monster turned into a library, and the big mouth turned into a dark gold door. There was no sound at all when the heavy iron door was pushed open. In the completely quiet hall on the first floor, there were some students sitting sparsely. Everything seemed normal. But in Marui's eyes, it was a completely different scene. It was not the students who were reading, But the books were reading the students. Reading people. The books placed in front of the students all had a single eye. A large number of long, spiky tentacles grew between the pages of the book. A part of it wrapped around the students' bodies, trapping them in their seat. Some of the tentacles cut open the students' heads along the midline through their sharp spikes, exposing the complete brain structure. Insert the tentacles into the brain. Just like flipping through a book, he flipped through the cerebral cortex and read the information hidden in the sulci, cerebellum, and other brain regions. Moreover, when it read interesting information, it would also record the content in the book. This kind of reading behavior made Mari's scalp tingle. But right now, the library was the only way out. Holding on to a glimmer of hope, she followed Han Dong to the front desk. Because no one was allowed to speak in the library, Han Dong passed a note with the words King in yellow on it to the staff at the front desk. Unexpectedly, the other party actually put down the work at hand and offered to lead the way. The books related to the yellow-robed king were stored in a special and hidden area, and they needed to be guided there. He walked through the library that was as complicated as the structure of the human intestines. Finally, he came to a sealed compartment. The staff took out a dusty yellow book from somewhere, and the title was exactly the same as the small label that Han Dong handed out. This book is the most precious and oldest collection of books in our library. Professor Nicholas, please taste it carefully. The word taste was emphasized, and the staff member quickly exited the room after revealing a devilish smile. Click at the same time. He locked the door. The unusually strange atmosphere forced Mari to get as close to Han Dong as possible, and their arms were completely pressed together. Han Dong looked at the yellow book in front of him and commented in a low voice, "There is indeed something wrong. I have never encountered such a situation in the library before. Perhaps this book contains the answer we are looking for. Let's begin." "Okay. Do you want to open it or should I?" "You do it." Although Mari wanted to open it herself and read the information about the yellow-robed king, she was a little scared when she thought of the previous scene of reading. As Han Dong opened the first page of the book, a pale yellow gas that only Mari could see overflowed from the book and filled the entire reading room. Buzz. Mari's body was immediately frozen, and she couldn't even speak. At this moment, the yellow mist gathered behind Mari in the shape of a ribbon and condensed into an existence shrouded in a yellow robe. Although Mari could feel the existence of the other party and felt the unparalleled horror, she couldn't do anything. Several old hands were inserted into Mari's hair and slowly moved up, fingernails circling around her skull. Crack! The skull was easily opened completely, and there was no pain. At the same time, under the influence of an external force, Mari's body was completely close to Han Dong, and her pried-open head was also completely in front of Han Dong. A fresh and rich brain fragrance was constantly overflowing from it, and she didn't know when, but Han Dong was holding a spoon in his hand. It seemed like he was about to start tasting her brain. Perspective change. The situation in Han Dong's eyes was completely different. When he opened the book, a fragrant smell was inhaled into his nose, stimulating the deepest desire in the soul. The content of this book with a yellow cover was actually colored. The description between the words was superb, and it triggered the deepest desire in Han Dong's body. At this moment, Mari, who was next to him, took the initiative to come up to him. She straddled between Han Dong's legs and expressed her most direct thoughts. "Mr. Han Dong, please taste me properly." Just like Mary, who had albinism, she naturally had a fair and tender body. Under the influence of such emotions and environment, it was impossible for any male to withstand it. "But what are you doing? We are reading for clues, aren't we? Sit down, we'll talk about this later." Han Dong carried Mari back to her original seat. He continued to read the book, and the words in it were filled with color. He even managed to find some useful and important information in Liu Bei's book. The yellow-robed king, Carcosa. Yes, I should have followed the yellow-robed king to explore the kingdom of souls that he ruled. How long have I been lost? When Han Dong realized this, the world around him began to crumble. The surrounding environment began to collapse. His consciousness floated up and slowly jumped out from the depths of his soul dream. When Han Dong opened his eyes, he was in the largest opera hall in Carcosa. His body was tied up in the air by strips of yellow silk. Beside him was a white-haired woman. It was Mari. The yellow-robed king stood in front of him and shook his head helplessly. Nicholas, what should I say about you? If I say you're impressive, you're indeed impressive. You were able to sense the abnormality in the dreamscape that I personally controlled, and even took the initiative to wake me up. I'm calling you stupid. You're really stupid. How could you hold back such a good thing? You've been meditating in the soul dreamland for several months already. Very few people can persist for such a long time. Not to mention, you've been practicing the Book of Undead in the dreamland, which has exhausted your soul to the limit. It just so happened that an outsider with the strength of a king had broken into this place. I wanted to lead her deeper and deeper into your dream. If you can absorb this high-quality king-class soul, you will be able to improve in all aspects. Sigh, what a waste. You can still eat it even if you wake up. The yellow-robed king knocked on Mari's head lightly. If the malignancy had not been removed, he would not have been able to hold back and Han Dong would not have a share. Chapter 1908. When he woke up from the dream, all his memories came back, and at the same time, he sorted out everything that happened in the dream. Han Dong immediately understood that the yellow-robed king had gone through so much trouble for him, but he didn't complain. He was still very grateful in his heart. It was just that. The white-haired woman, Marui, who was hanging beside him and had also been lured into the dream, was dressed in a whirlpool mask hanging on her waist. She was a member of the Black Tower. Whether it was the two-point whirlpool mask or the white coat with the pattern of a scale printed on it, as well as the level of a lower king, it was enough to show that this woman's status in the Black Tower was definitely not low. Moreover, there must be a reason why the other party took the initiative to come here. Who would have thought that it would be packed up by the Yellow Robe and made into food specially for Han Dong? Senior Yellow Robe, did this lady offend you in any way? Or did she do something she shouldn't have done or said something she shouldn't have said after breaking into Carx's? No, I just felt that she was very suitable as a soul tonic, so I specially gave her to you to taste. This made Han Dong look embarrassed. Don't be like this. We just established a special relationship with the Black Tower, and I'm still an important middleman. It's not a good thing to directly eat an important king-level member of the other party. What's wrong with that? This is what happens to those who don't know the rules. Senior, the other party definitely wouldn't break into the Soul Kingdom for no reason. Maybe there's something important to report to you. Why don't you let her talk first? Maybe it's very important to you and me. That's fine too. The yellow-robed man waved his hand and the satin was untied. When she fell heavily on the dilapidated stage, Marui, who was sleeping, immediately woke up. The king-level domain instinctively unfolded, and a scale visible to the naked eye hung behind her. At the same time, countless white arms spread out in a fan shape, gently touching the different scales of the scale. But in the next second, her domain was directly covered and swallowed, and the scale also dissipated. A voice that seeped into the soul sounded in her brain. Don't forget where you are. This is my theater. Don't perform without permission. Too much of your soul characteristics will only make you more delicious. It has no other effect. This terrible sound made Mari suddenly wake up. Dream. Was everything just a dream? With the influx of memories, Marui immediately adapted. Kneeling on one knee, he retracted all of his abilities. Due to the fear in the depths of their souls, they did not dare to look directly at the yellow-robed king in front of them. Even if they only caught a glimpse of the yellow-robed satin that was dragging on the ground, their souls would be greatly affected. However, she was able to glance at Han Dong normally. After retrieving her memory, she naturally recognized that this was the only candidate that Mr. M had identified. At the same time, she also thought of the experience in the dream, especially the last moment of the dream. When she was imprisoned by the yellow robe, her skull was removed and sent to Han Dong. Just as her brain was about to be eaten unexpectedly, Han Dong actually covered her skull again and moved her back to her original seat. At the time, whether it was the dream or the consciousness of the two, most of it was under Yellow Robe's control. Mary also knew very well that she had been used as food by the yellow-robed king and offered to Han Dong in a clever way. However, Han Dong was able to resist the temptation and understand the truth of the dream, which saved her life. A sense of dependence that she had never felt before was born in the depths of her heart. At this time, Han Dong suddenly asked, "Miss Marui, did you not hesitate to take such a big risk to go to the Soul Kingdom to convey something?" Yes. As a member of the balance team, I was ordered by Ms. Bay to go here to convey an important message to the yellow-robed king. All the rampagers have left the Black Tower and will inevitably invade the multiverse in the short term. Although the probability of invading S-01 in the early stages is not high, please be prepared for defense. In addition, this is the relevant information about the rampagers. Marui took out a large amount of information from the storage device that she carried with her. Han Dong's eyes widened when he heard this notification. He quickly looked at the yellow-robed king. "Senior Yellow Robe, how long did I spend in the dream?" "According to the normal time calendar, it should be 11 months. 11 months? This group of rampagers actually escaped a year earlier than the estimated time. The time estimated by Director Charles himself can't be wrong. Could it be that there are more variables that caused these guys to escape earlier? Is it because these guys took away the real brain book?" "Real brain book? What's that?" Marui was very curious about this unknown term. "It's something unique to us hybrid demons, wandering in the broken dimensions. The most important part was accidentally discovered by these guys." "Miss Marui, how did they escape the Black Tower?" "The rampagers used a technology that was beyond our understanding to strip the entire headquarters of the Black Tower. This caused the Black Tower to be temporarily paralyzed. It was all thanks to Mr. Anton's return and Mr. Mentor that the crisis was completely eliminated." Han Dong was not very surprised. "As expected, I knew that these guys would definitely take BBC away with them. It would be a pity to leave such a perfect base in the Black Tower. Using it as a base would save a lot of trouble. By the way, can I go back to the Black Tower with you? I still have some friends who are training inside. I have to get them out." Marui was a little embarrassed. "I'm afraid I have to ask Ms. Bay. The Black Tower has already activated Level 1 alert. All the passages in the world are closed, and the Destiny space is also suspended." "Okay, then I'll go with you first to meet Ms. Bay." The first thing Han Dong thought of was to get Togu, Chun-Li, and Nicole out. Of course, there was also Count. Otherwise, if they were left alone in a world, it would be too late once they encountered the Rampagers' invasion. "Wait, Nicholas, aren't you going to examine the changes in your body before considering whether to leave?" Due to the sudden incident, Han Dong, who woke up from his dream, was still a little confused. When Yellow Robe mentioned this, Han Dong remembered the changes in his body. After a full 11 months, Han Dong had already comprehended and learned all the remnant pages collected in the broken dimensions. Even if he didn't achieve great success, he had at least achieved small success. Under the control of his consciousness, the bone fluid could easily cover the whole body, mixed with a gray metallic luster. It had the defensive power of Empire-level armor, and at the same time, It could also cover the surface of the internal organs with a bone layer. These were the benefits brought by the true bone book. When his attention shifted to the heart, the entire opera house sounded with a strong heartbeat. It even forced Marui's heartbeat to match his own. If Han Dong landed on a planet with a biological civilization, he only needed to adjust his heartbeat to 1,000 and he could easily destroy the entire civilization. Of course, the most important function was to provide an inexhaustible supply of heart blood. If it worked with Count, it would definitely be very useful. These were the control effects of the true heart book. Then he looked at the various organs in Han Dong's body. The surface of each of the internal organs was covered with tiny holes. If one were to zoom in on these holes, one would be able to see the inside. They were actually similar to doors and windows. Following the small holes to the inside, he would find that the internal organs were filled with little people, working at full efficiency like a factory. This was not as simple as 996, but 7724. It could also respond to different situations, meet different needs, and undergo different forms. This was the effect of the true Viscera book. In addition, the most peculiar thing was the change brought by the true skull book. Rather than the skull, it was more like the face. Its main effect should be to enhance the abilities of various senses. At the same time, it could also be linked with the demon eye to display a better effect. However, during the training, it had a special reaction with the faceless skull. This allowed the camouflage to be further improved. With the permission of the yellow robe, Han Dong picked up a strand of yellow silk scattered on the ground and turned himself into the appearance of the yellow robe king. It exuded almost the same soul aura, and even the pit structure on the surface of the face was exactly the same. When the feeling was finished, Han Dong immediately returned to his original appearance and knelt on the ground devoutly. "Thank you, Yellow Robe King, for your kindness and care for me for such a long time." The voice of the yellow robe echoed in the opera house. "I am also very curious about what kind of experience it is to cultivate the Book of the Dead. The changes in your body during this time have been satisfying my curiosity. After all, no fiend has ever been able to cultivate this supreme demonic book. I can be considered the first witness. If you want to thank me, put aside the matter of the Black Tower for the time being. If you have any friends or close friends over there, they will definitely be in a hurry to find you. Since the war is coming and you are the central figure, there are only two things you need to consider. 1. Continue to cultivate the remaining pages of the dead spirit. 2. Become a king. If you can't do these two things when the other side really invades us, you can only watch everyone play games because of your lack of strength. This is too boring." "Yes, I understand." Chapter 1909. Han Dong gladly accepted Yellow Robe's opinion. This was indeed very reasonable. If it was reduced by an entire year compared to the shortest time, Han Dong had to seize every minute and second. He couldn't delay for even a moment. If he couldn't become a king, he wouldn't be able to resist the terrifying rampager. And the Book of Undead was also the most important and most necessary trump card. During the cultivation, Han Dong also vaguely had an extremely subtle feeling. He felt that the supreme demonic book might bring about a great promotion to becoming a king, and even produce an unexpected qualitative change. Because of the characteristics of the Book of Undead, no hybrid demon had been able to cultivate it since ancient times. No one knew what kind of changes it would bring when it was finally cultivated. Han Dong was the only cultivator, and also the cultivator closest to the truth. So far, Han Dong had already collected the remnant pages that symbolized inside in the shattered dimension, except for the brain, and with the help of Yellow Robe King, he had completed his cultivation. The rest, which was kept in the outside parts of the old kingdoms, needed to be personally obtained. Thinking of this, Han Dong gently put a hand on Mary's shoulder, leaned close to her cheek and said seriously, "Miss Mary, I'll have to trouble you with something. When you return to the Black Tower, help me check this list. Directly investigate through me, you'll be able to find it very quickly. If you find that they are still training in the Destiny world, please take them back to the Black Tower by force, and do your best to ensure their safety. The best way is to send them back to S01. If the two didn't know each other. Even if Han Dong had the identity of M's only candidate, Mary would definitely not agree to this request. Under the situation of Level 1 alert, any world transmigration was bound to take a great risk. Once she lost control, even she wouldn't be able to protect herself. She would be directly judged by the highest will, and there was a high probability that she would be directly executed. But the situation now was different. If it wasn't for Han Dong, after her brain was tasted, her soul would forever remain in this country, and even death would become the most luxurious thing. All right, when I return to the Black Tower, I'll immediately do it. Because of such an agreement. Otherwise, even if Han Dong refused to eat, Yellow Robe would make Marui his own dessert. Yellow Robe also took out a piece of yellow silk and sent Marui directly to the exit of the Soul Kingdom. She was the first alien to come to Calcasa and leave in one piece. Inside the magnificent but dilapidated opera house, the yellow-robed prince strolled across the stage, circling Han Dong in the center. Nicholas, because of the decline of the Black Mountain Goat race, the true leg Manuelu fell into my hands. It took me a lot of effort to seal this thing in the depths of Carcasa. Although there is an almost unbreakable seal, I am not sure how it is after so many years. Come with me. I hope the page is still there. You haven't explored the depths of Carcosa yet. As for the other 2 pages, I remember that one is in the Dreamlands and the other is in the Deep Sea. When you go there, help me say hello to the giant octopus in the Deep Sea. All right, let's go. We are already on our way. Following the yellow-robed king's reminder, Han Dong suddenly felt a sense of vertical drop. The yellow-robed king, who was walking in circles, was actually walking down a flight of stairs. Just as Han Dong realized this, the stage of the opera house also turned into a spiral staircase. We still have a long way to go. It will take at least a day. There is no shortcut. Just in time. There is something I need to ask you. I really can't understand your action, just now. For someone like you who needs to catch up and replenish your nutrition, this is simply a heaven-sent opportunity. Why did you reject it? Aside from the hunger, during training, you should have eaten a long time ago. If Carcasa was as prosperous as before, I would have asked the kitchen to make you some soul soup to nourish your body. But with your current condition, there is no way I can get you something to eat. Your soul is starving. Plus, you should know your own condition. Once you consume a king-tier brain, it will greatly boost your future training. Other than that, you don't have to worry about anything. If I eat her here, the Black Tower won't even notice. Even if they find out, I will be the scapegoat. Of course, I won't care about those bastards. If anyone dares to trespass in Carcasa, I don't mind using them as decoration materials. Can you explain why you gave up on eating and purposely slowed down your advancement? Han Dong smiled awkwardly. Haha, I really didn't mean to slow down my advancement. How should I put it? I just didn't want to eat her. My soul is not completely human, but there is a part of me that is still human. This part allows me to retain the most basic of humanity. I really couldn't do anything to a human who had good intentions and had been with me for some time. That's the reason. Humanity. If that's the case, I can understand. During the separation period, the lazy part stayed in human society for many years to create. Most of the works involved discussions on human nature. I understand. I won't force you to do this next time. Thank you for your understanding. Of course, if one day someone with bad intentions comes knocking on my door, please remember to share a cup of brain soup with me. I still remember the brain crab I ate at the beach in the dream world. It was quite delicious. When those rampagers come to me, you will have your chance. While they were going down the spiral tunnel, the king continued to ask Han Dong about his experience in the dream world. He praised Han Dong many times. He was very satisfied with Han Dong's performance. When they were about to reach the bottom, tap tap tap, the sound of bare feet stomping on the ground came from the bottom. Soon, two long legs without a body ran up the stairs. After running up a certain number of steps, they turned around and went down. They wandered back and forth in the stairwell. As the two continued to descend, there were more and more legs like this, running in groups in the stairwell. Seeing this, the king said helplessly, "Seems like after so many years of neglect, some of them still manage to escape. But, as long as the page is still here, it's fine." Chapter 1910. So many legs. There are all kinds of legs. It should be enough to satisfy most people's XP. In the beginning, there was only a pair of legs running up and down. Later, the number of legs gradually increased, and it was not just up and down. Some legs even grew directly in the stairwell, or through some kind of hook structure hanging in the corridor. When they were close to the bottom, they almost had to squeeze between the legs to move forward. When necessary, they had to cut off some fat legs that were blocking the way to make some space to move forward. In any case, these derived legs all showed human characteristics, not the legs of the hybrid demons. This also indirectly showed the true nature of the Book of the Dead. The king in the yellow robe had also done a lot of research on this supreme demonic book in private. When he was young, he also tried to learn it, but of course it ended in failure. After all, who didn't want to be stronger? He looked at the legs and feet that crowded the corridor and softly commented, "Humans should be the protagonists of this world, but due to the accidental birth of the chaos, we dominated everything. Humans who could not be born according to the rules of the world could only be accumulated on the opposite side of the world. When this accumulation reached a certain level, it would form a special anti-state. This was the derivation of the Book of the Dead. This demonic book was the first product that was obtained by going against the development of the world. Its main purpose should be to drive away, destroy us hybrid demons. If we want to cultivate this thing, it is simply impossible. I didn't expect that after countless eras, the gray guy really found a way to cultivate this demonic book. In the end, to control this Book of the Dead, we still have to start with a human, and this human must have an inseparable relationship with the hybrid demons. In the beginning, even I didn't understand why did the gray guy have to use the Black Tower as a transit station to bring the humans from other worlds to our side. He also built a shelter for humans and guided their development invisibly. In the meantime, it even caused a very entertaining but unpleasant world catastrophe. It wasn't until I saw you that I truly understood what the gray guy wanted to do. Not only did he find a way to cultivate the Book of the Dead to make full use of the world's resources, but he also maximized his previous selfish projects, as expected of the first chaos. Of course, more importantly, you yourself. Haha, Han Dong only laughed twice and did not reply. The old king he was most grateful to was the Grey Walker. No matter what the other party's original intentions were, it did not matter. If it weren't for Gray's decision to bring in humans, Han Dong wouldn't have been able to upgrade from the primitive world to such a magnificent, amazing, and unknown hybrid demon world. Even if Han Dong were to retain his knowledge of the infinite worlds and choose to upgrade again, he would still choose S01 without hesitation. Finally, we reached the bottom of Carcosa. The spacious underground space was also filled with all kinds of legs and feet. It even felt like every leg had a certain level of consciousness and could sense outsiders through a certain method. When Han Dong approached, these legs would automatically open up a path for him. However, when the yellow-robed king wanted to follow along, he was blocked by these legs. Of course, this level of obstruction was meaningless to the yellow-robed king. However, out of consideration for the remnant page, Yellow Robe remained where he was and did not follow. Go, the remnant page is sealed in the mirror of souls by me. Go and get it yourself. Alright. The legs in front of Han Dong would automatically split, just enough for him to pass through. Soon, he arrived at the center of the underground space. A mirror with a faint yellow glow stood there. When he touched it with his fingertips, a layer of ripples spread out from the mirror. Han Dong was pulled into the mirror world. It was the same as the outside world, a spacious underground space. The only difference was that there were no human legs here, and it was unusually spacious. However, amidst the silence, there was the sound of footsteps that constantly changed directions, sometimes far, sometimes close. Asterisk thud thud thud. Asterisk the sound of bare feet stepping on the ground was unusually crisp. It was obvious that something was moving at high speed here. It was impossible to see with the naked eye. Only with the help of the demonic eye could he barely see what it was. A leg that was dragging afterimages behind it. Leg, to be more precise. It was a remnant page of the grimoire with a pair of perfectly proportioned legs. This guy, seeing me, a true apostle of necromancy, didn't come over? After being imprisoned for countless epochs, have more independent meanings been born? When Han Dong tried to keep up with the grimoire's speed, something unexpected happened. Buzz. The soul left its shell. The body and soul ran in opposite directions, huh? Is this the effect of the seal set up by Yellow Robe? In the mirror world, everything must be reversed. Any action that does not follow the mirror will lead to the separation of the body and soul. However, this is nothing to me. Doctor, help me! The swollen doctor's brain immediately derived from the cranial cavity and perfectly fitted with Han Dong's brain. It still adopted a normal movement pattern. When the brain transmitted nerve signals to the fleshy legs, the doctor would output these signals in reverse. This way, it could perfectly adapt to the mirror world. However, the chase was the biggest problem. Even if Han Dong used space transference and perfectly intercepted the remnant page, the other party's explosive speed would escape from danger and could not be caught at all. Han Dong even used the demonic eye of truth to distort reality, but he still could not restrain the too fast legs. Sigh. Since you are so fast that you are unreasonable, I will also be unreasonable, cough cough cough. As soon as the voice fell, Han Dong began to cough violently. A large number of internal organs were coughed out of the body. Each piece of internal organs was covered with a layer of strange gray, wriggling small tentacles, containing the energy of the dead, independent body. Soon, one by one, the faceless that exuded the same aura as Han Dong stood up. Hand in hand, they formed a large circle. Through the contraction method without any dead ends, the legs that had no way to run were confined to the center. After seeing the use of the demonic book and its own ability displayed by Han Dong, the remnant page no longer struggled. Instead, it took the initiative to meet him. Snap! The two legs clamped onto the waist and abdomen of Han Dong's body, and through the bending of the big legs, the remnant page and the real book were delivered in front of him. The moment Han Dong received the remnant page, the two legs clamped on the waist, the two perfect legs that were slowly bred, cultivated, and constructed by the demonic book for countless centuries, also turned into nutrients and merged into Han Dong's lower body. Han Dong, who had cultivated the leg copy, Toad, immediately accepted this gift. Phew! It's really comfortable. It's really comfortable to have the completion of the preliminary preparation work, and the subsequent cultivation will be relatively easy. Let's go. Go to the deep sea, to find the next remnant page. Chapter 1911. Carcosa's Halley Lake. Yellow Robe was the boatman, as he rowed Han Dong to the shore. While they were rowing, A white jade tentacle grew out from the bottom of the yellow robe and quietly wrapped around one of Han Dong's legs. From his ankles to his thighs, the tentacle even had a structure similar to a suction cup and stuck to the surface of his skin. You've just obtained the remnant page below and haven't studied it systematically yet, but your legs have already changed? How did you do it? Well, I was lucky enough to learn the leg copy, and received guidance from the old king. Leg, don't tell me it's the toad? Yes, the bufo took good care of me back then. No wonder, this toad is quite capable. The toad, Nkei, under its rule has been listed as a model city many times, and many small and medium-sized cities of the hybrid demons have tried to imitate it. Many intergalactic portals are also related to the toad demons under its rule. Moreover, this guy once tried to cultivate the Book of the Dead Spirit. Although it ended in failure, it gained a lot of enlightenment. Therefore, it combined the essence of the toad demons on the basis of the real book and created a unique leg copy. After Yellow Robe mentioned this, Han Dong also recalled his past experience. Toad Ancestor could be said to have played an important role in his growth. It directly removed Han Dong from the team, and it could even be said to have temporarily cut off his connection with the humans and sent him to London in advance. At the same time, it also gave him a Lord Meritus. It was this gift that allowed Han Dong to come into contact with the entire hybrid demon circle in advance and laid the foundation for the success of the subsequent great expedition. At the same time, it also allowed Han Dong to participate in the first London game and meet the important origin demons in advance. It paved the way for the future development of the relationship in the hybrid demon circle. When this is over, I must pick up Miss Meritus and return to Nkei to greet the bufo. Without the boost given by the bufo, my understanding of the world and my own growth will be far slower than it is now. When the wooden boat reached the shore, only Han Dong came ashore. Just as Han Dong was walking towards the exit, Yellow Robe's voice sounded again. Nicholas, wait a minute. I suddenly remembered that if you go to the deep sea, other than sending my regards, please return this to the giant octopus. A pure soul crystal floated out of his sleeve, similar to a white jade bead. What is this? Han Dong had a bad feeling. In the past, I had some conflicts with that giant octopus, and this was the reason for the conflict. Return this to him. After all, you are an emissary on both sides. I believe you can adjust the relationship between them. Han Dong took the sphere with a puzzled expression. 1. It was as if an electric current had passed through his entire brain. He could clearly feel that the soul of a powerful hybrid demon was wrapped in the white jade bead. Even if it was not at the king level, it was at least at the mythical level. Furthermore, this soul was extremely clear and unique. Its specific shape was similar to that of an octopus in the deep sea. Obviously, this was not a friendly errand. However, since Han Dong was a yellow-robed emissary, he should do what emissaries should do. Not to mention, he had been taking care of Yellow Robe during this period of time. Naturally, he could not refuse. Okay, I will return this to the great existence of the deep sea. 1. Han Dong had already stepped out of the Soul Kingdom. Well, don't die. Yellow Robe deliberately said this after Han Dong had left, as if he was saying it for himself to hear so that his conscience would feel better. 1. Han Dong appeared on the surface of a desolate planet. What kind of place is this? Fortunately, the planet of plants is docked here. Otherwise, it would be difficult for me to locate it. How should I get to the deep sea? According to my previous understanding of the deep sea, there is a passage to the deep sea in any ocean area between planets. It feels like a sea that contains hundreds of rivers. With my identity as a deep-sea emissary, it should be easy to cross over. Let's go. Let's go to the nearest planet to take a look. Just as Han Dong was about to land on the planet of Plant 1, a strong wave of detection came, and without any disguise, It directly marked Han Dong. What level of perceptual wave is this? It directly radiates to the entire star field to determine my position? Could it be that Mr. Teacher's body has invaded here? Is he so arrogant? The first thought that came to Han Dong's mind was a rampager. He immediately returned to the entrance of the Soul Kingdom. Now, he was definitely not Mr. Teacher's opponent, and he might not even survive for a few seconds. Drip. Suddenly, a drop of thick white liquid suddenly fell in front of Han Dong. Do you think I'm a rampager? It seems that you have caused a lot of trouble over there. The white liquid first condensed into a hand holding Han Dong's shoulder, and then slowly condensed into a corresponding human figure. This is Mr. M. Why are you here? I have been looking for you for several days. A few hours ago, I heard about you from an investigator, and immediately rushed to this star field. I didn't expect you to be practicing in the Soul Kingdom. I didn't expect that there would be so many old Wangdu taking care of you behind the scenes. You really know how to socialize. Haha, I have known the king in the yellow robe for a long time. It's just that recently we met again because of some small matters. Senior, you came to S01 in person. You must have something urgent to tell me, right? Well, it's about the world placement. The Rampagers have all escaped, and even the headquarters building has been taken away, which means that they don't need to establish a base at all. They will inevitably launch a world invasion in a short period of time. I have hundreds of self-created worlds under my command, and each of them is facing potential danger. The number of Black Tower's recent admission has been severely limited. I plan to put some of the worlds related to you, such as the Corpse Kingdom. In addition, a few worlds that you are a shareholder of will all be placed here in S01, and you will be the connection object. Okay. What do you want to do? I have already gone to the Void with Miss Bay in advance, and got the approval of the Prophet. These worlds will be temporarily made into stable, void meat bubbles by the Prophet's hand, and they will be kept by you. After they are made, the Void should directly send these meat bubbles to you, or let you go somewhere to get them. That's great. Thank you, Senior M. Hearing this, Han Dong was overjoyed. He was also very worried about the world he was connected to, but he didn't expect it to be directly packed up and brought over by Senior M. Yes, has Dry Town also been placed here? The mayor is. That's not the case. Since you know the mayor's identity, they will definitely not come over. Such an important and special world has been protected by the Black Tower in the first place. Well, that's good. By the way, your friend has also been brought over. I still have a lot of things to do, and I have been delayed here for a few days. I will find you when I am free. When Mr. M looked at his watch, he quickly turned around and left. The ultra-stable space channel formed by the modeling fluid transmitted 4 familiar figures. Togu, Miss Chun-Li and Nico. You have finally completed the trial. When Han Dong, who was excited, stepped forward to give them a hug, he could also clearly feel the difference. Except for Nico, who was still in atavism, Chun-Li and Togu were already mythical, and Togu's body was still exuding a strong world power. The specific details would naturally be slowly asked later. During the hug, Han Dong vaguely caught a glimpse of an acquaintance at the back through Chun-Li's hair, Nico's tentacles, and Togu's needles and saw blades. He seemed to be wagging his tail. Chapter 1912. During the embrace, the pain from Togu's body was unusually strong. Even if Han Dong used his body's adjustment and the special effects of his internal organs to share and eliminate the pain, he could still clearly feel the pain. At the same time, it also symbolized the incomparably special Hell Monk power in Togu's body. But there was something else that Han Dong was particularly concerned about. Togu, what's with the chains in your body? This shouldn't be the effect of the destiny trial, right? Sir, this is the world chain that Mr. Mentor gave me as an extra gift. The specific situation is like this. According to Mr. M's promise, the corresponding world chain would be given to Togu according to how many worlds he could pull back. As a result, about 80% of the worlds were pulled back by Togu to the world mountain. During this process, Togu's muscles were torn many times, and his fingers, wrists, elbows, and arms were broken due to excessive force. But Togu could turn the pain into strength and do his best to complete the task given by M. As a result, Togu's whole body, from top to bottom, inside and outside, were all replaced with world chains forged by rules. His whole body had undergone a complete qualitative change. Even the purest and oldest Hell Monk might not be able to reach Togu's current quality. If Togu were to fight Han Dong head-on, he would have to pay a huge price to suppress him. This is another big favor owed to Mr. M, no wonder his expression wasn't good just now. I thought it was a problem of time delay. I didn't expect Togu to trick me. He definitely didn't expect you to be able to pull back so many worlds. This is a big loss. These world chains must have cost him a lot of effort. It even required the unique modeling technique of the letter M to make them, and it also went through countless years of gestation before they could take shape. Well, it's really not bad. Togu's expression didn't change much. He thought it was just his work. On the side, Chun-Li stretched out her arms and tightly hugged Han Dong's neck. Or rather, she was tightly strangling him, enough to completely strangle him to death. Compared to before, she had a few extra traces of hostility. The individual who gained the most from the Destiny trial Clive Barker's Jericho wasn't Togu but Chun-Li. Jericho's infernal realm was filled with unimaginable resentment. Not only the local creatures, but also many outsiders who failed to pass the trial. The accumulated resentment was almost completely absorbed by Chun-Li. Furthermore, at the final juncture of the trial, he had completely fused these resentments with his body and achieved a breakthrough. Chun-Li, who had advanced to the mythical level, could also be called a ghost god according to the type. Han Dong carefully sensed the resentment in Chun-Li's body. She could read all sorts of terrifying existences that transcended common sense and even piece together some images to see Jericho's glory. Chun-Li's seemingly normal female body had long turned into a scene of purgatory similar to Jericho's. Leaning against her stomach, he could even hear all kinds of sounds coming from inside her body, such as painful screams, the cries of a baby, and the tearing of bones and flesh. Even its master, Han Dong, could feel an inexplicable sense of danger. If he slept with her, he wouldn't even know when it would be cut off. Miss Chun-Li, there's a big change, right? Han Dong, you really found a good trial ground for us. I didn't plan to come out. It feels so comfortable to stay inside. Let's go next time. Okay. At this moment, red lips were pressed against Han Dong's ear. A special tongue slowly stretched out. The tongue that had been cut artificially was divided into two parts with iron rings hanging on each side. It drilled into Han Dong's ear and whispered the most secret words. Come with me next time. In Jericho, there's a very fun, forbidden room. The toy design there can surpass the limit of the human body's pursuit of touch. Okay. Han Dong gladly accepted Chun-Li's malignant change. After all, she belonged to the nature of a malicious spirit, and was always wrapped in resentment. As she grew, she would inevitably need to absorb all kinds of resentment from the outside world. Her nature and thinking would definitely change toward evil. As long as Chun-Li remained loyal to him and kept a small part of her original self, it would be enough. Next, he looked at Nicole. Her appearance had not changed much. During the period when Nicole followed him to Jericho, she had also acted as an assistant, providing medical treatment, tentacles, and the deep-sea prison, etc. There was still a long way to go before she could reach the mythical body. Coincidentally, Han Dong was about to go to the deep sea. Perhaps he could find an opportunity for her. Before Han Dong could speak, Nicole, who had always been shy, took the initiative to speak. Lord Nicholas, you seem to be carrying something related to the deep sea. You can feel it. Well, there's a kind of bloodline affinity. Han Dong directly took out the soul crystal that Yellow Robe had entrusted to him and was about to show it to Nicole. After all, Nicole had the bloodline of the deep sea royal family, so she might know what this thing was. Wow. It looks like some great deep-sea creature is imprisoned inside, but I can't tell what it is. Can I touch it? Okay. Just as Nicole's finger touched the surface of the bead-shaped crystal. Buzz. An irreversible absorption that even Han Dong couldn't stop in time suddenly happened. Nicole was directly sucked in. Just as Han Dong was trying to destroy the crystal, he suddenly remembered something and stopped the hand knife that was chopping down. If Yellow Robe didn't lie, the soul imprisoned inside has already had its brain eaten by him, and its consciousness no longer exists. This might be an opportunity for Nicole. The magic eye of truth was 100% open. He stuck the bead to the surface of the eyeball at 0 distance to observe. A small pink octopus that symbolized Nicole was entangled with the dark blue substance. There was no obvious erosion or occupation. Anyway, let's go to the deep sea first. Due to the suddenness of the incident, Han Dong's attention was also focused on this. He forgot that there was an old friend who had returned and was about to turn around and leave. Just as he was about to move, he smelled a familiar smell of blood. Oh, I almost forgot. Count, long time no see. Let's talk about your situation on the way. Nicole's situation is still unstable. We have to hurry to the deep sea. Count shouldn't have come back. It's better to stay in Dawn of Terror. The god of the underworld has regarded me as his spokesperson. Enough blood to fill the small world, and countless believers belong to me. Oh, we don't need to talk about this. Han Dong also realized that he had been ignoring Count, showing an embarrassed expression, and stepped forward to put his hand on Count's shoulder. With this contact, he immediately felt the change in Count. The holy blood had been completed. In other words, the current Count was the origin of the holy blood. However, all this was natural in Han Dong's view. When Count was asked to do this, the best result was this. Considering that Count was a little angry, Han Dong deliberately widened his eyes and showed a very surprised expression. What the f***ck? Count, you bastard. I just asked you to bring back the Titan body of the origin of the holy blood. You actually merged with this body. The quality of the blood in your body is completely different from the past. Strong. The big thumb swayed in front of Count's eyes, almost stuffed into his nose. What's there to be surprised about? It's just a small saint-level world. How difficult can it be? Forget it. Nicole's matter is really important. Let's hurry up. Count has never been to the deep sea. It's just right to go and take a look. Chapter 1913. He temporarily sent Chun Li and Togu back to the prison world. After not returning for so long, the prison world had completely changed. Even the area was several times larger than before. The two of them needed to get used to it. As for Count, although he was a little unhappy with Han Dong's neglect, after a few praises and concern, he still happily returned to his original identity. Especially when he came into contact with Han Dong's body. Thump, thump, thump bursts of strange and intense heartbeats made Count sweat profusely. This was because his own heartbeat was synchronized. It was very uncomfortable under such a strange heartbeat frequency. Nicholas, what move is this? The effect of the Book of the Dead. True Heart Edition is not only heartbeat, but also greatly increases the amount of blood supplied. My body's blood system has been completely transformed. Do you want to try it? Count's face was full of surprise when he was asked such a question. You're giving me ownership of your body? Han Dong took the opportunity to put his arm around Count's shoulder. His fingers gently moved the cone-shaped spikes on Count's collar. Just return my body to me when we reach the deep sea. You've been away for so long, and my body has undergone a lot of changes. You still need to get used to it. When we face the Rampager together in the future, it's very likely that we'll need to replace our consciousness. A blood-red light flashed in his eyes. Come on, I'll let you try the great harvest of this Count's trip. If your body's endurance isn't enough, you might not even be able to withstand this new level of blood. As soon as he finished speaking, Count had already condensed his body into blood. He stuck to the dense pores on his right arm and quickly drilled back into his body. Rather than fusion, it was more appropriate to say that he was going home. When all the blood seeped into his right arm, both Han Dong and Count suffered a strong physiological impact. A brand new blood that exceeded Han Dong's expectations was flowing through the blood vessels in his body, into his heart, and then to every corner of his body. Count was not bragging or arrogant at all. When the blood seeped into his body, it almost burst his blood vessels. Eventually, Han Dong got used to it. However, as Han Dong slowly adapted to the blood, a further change occurred. Drip, 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 his nose began to bleed. A few seconds later, the nosebleed turned into bleeding from all 7 orifices. Even the pores on his body began to bleed. The blood that seeped out of his body even converged into a stream. The amount of blood he lost was extremely shocking. It looked scary, but it was actually a good thing. The new blood that Count introduced into his body was expelling Han Dong's original inferior blood out of his body, not leaving a single drop behind. It was the so-called whole-body blood exchange. At the same time, most importantly, the structure of his right arm was evolving. The skin of his right arm had been dissolved by the blood, exposing the neatly arranged blood vessels, muscle tissue, and bone structure, as well as the G-virus that secretly provided support. A brand new blood system was being introduced into his right arm. The blood vessels between the arms were separated into capillaries that were 1/1000th of the diameter. Then, through an ancient weaving process that originated from the inheritance of the god of underworld blood, the structure of the entire right arm was redrawn. Even the bones were disassembled, and the interior was neatly stuffed with small blood vessels. Han Dong observed the whole process, and his eyes were about to pop out. This was a blood field that he had never been involved in. The entire process of shaping the right arm was flawless, as if a master was creating a peerless handicraft. When the construction was completed, a skin that was also woven with capillaries was tightly attached to the surface, flexible, strong, light, and translucent. There was also a faint sword seal on the inner wrist. At the same time, the detection program of the faceless head also sensed frowny face detected that the individual's right arm has undergone a complete qualitative change and has reached a new quality. The relevant information is being revalidated. It is expected that the quality of the right arm will reach to legendary or even higher. After receiving such detection information, Han Dong was extremely excited and quickly asked, "Count, you fused underworld blood and holy blood into something new?" In the face of the question, Count did not answer for a long time. It was not because of arrogance that he did not want to answer. At this moment, Count was enduring a strong impact from the Book of the Dead. The internal environment that had been reconstructed by the Page of the Dead could be described as a devil's den. It could be described as such. Count, who had the mentality of going home, thought that he could lie on the comfortable sofa and enjoy the warmth of the fireplace. As a result, when he opened the door, the interior was stuffed with all kinds of internal organs, and the floor was overflowing with body fluids. There were even all kinds of terrible whispers echoing in Count's ears, almost eroding his consciousness and turning him into a dead spirit. At the critical moment, Count took out his own demonic book, the 7 chapters of the mysterious Lord's secret scripture, and used the mental cultivation method in it to resist this terrible assimilation effect. After a full 10 minutes, Count was barely able to speak. Nicholas, you've already mastered it? So fast? It's just the internal part, there's still a lot to go. If you really master the Book of the Dead, it's far from the current level. You haven't answered my question yet. What's going on with your blood? Has the nether blood and the holy blood fused? Count tried his best to pretend that he was not affected by the dead spirit and said pretentiously, cough, cough. This isn't a fusion, but a mosaic. The holy sword bloodline is more like a tool, while the nether blood is a system. When this count defeated the bloody titan and wrapped its corpse in the blood fetus, it entered a special state of acceptance. The entire titan's corpse was condensed into holy blood essence by me in a few months. Then it was embedded in the nether blood room through a method that you can't understand at all. This process allowed this count's nether blood system to rise to a whole new level. Even in the entire dawn of terror, there's no other similar system. Even the Lord God praised my blood system endlessly, but Count, who was originally very proud, suddenly lowered his voice when he said this. But what? I've been regarded as a spokesperson and successor by the Lord God. He strongly urged me to stay in dawn of terror. Cough, cough. When I help you defeat these uncontrollables and witness you become the queen, this Count will have to leave. Although Count tried his best to cover it up, there was still a little melancholy in his words. Just as he wanted to hear Han Dong's opinion, the other party replied without hesitation, "That's great. You're not the only candidate. Once the Lord of the Underworld retires, you'll be the master of Dawn of Terror. Once you've dealt with things here and everything calms down, you can go over. Well, this Count is a little tired and won't take over your body for the time being. Wait until you've dealt with the matters in the deep sea. I'll go and rest first. Well, I'll try out the brand new right arm. You did a good job this time, Mr. Bach. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.